Sick of it.
Richard's rugger thing.
On Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
They spoke about your arm not being down beside your side. I mean, this is not Irish dancing.
OTB Sports Radio.
Basketball would have been my main game.
The brand new sports radio station from Off the Ball.
That's my point. Don't play for us if you're a proud Englishman.
Now broadcasting 24 hours a day. Live on the Go Loud app, Alexa.
You have a whole new world of possibilities.
Google Home, tune in, and offtheball.com/radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Right, a very good morning to you. It is 7:30 a.m, but we're not actually as live as we're going to be for the rest of the show. What we're going to do is move our start times. We've been looking at some data, and it turns out that a lot of you are having cheeky lie-ins every morning from your normal times, that your usual commute time has disappeared and you're coming to us a little bit later. So we decided we'd experiment, certainly for this week anyway. We're going to start the show live at 8 o'clock and we're going to run to 10 o'clock. So you still get the same amount of patented OTB AM content that's coming your way. And we've got some great stuff lined up today in particular and for the rest of the week as well. We are going to start at 7:30 every morning, these live streams, and we're going to run some of our best material from the last week or the last 24 hours, or depending on how big a story is. Obviously, we were pretty blessed with a giant breaking story on Saturday evening, which is rolled on to yesterday. So in the next half hour, you're going to hear some great content about the Stephen Kenny special, essentially, where you're going to hear from host a guest on his appointment as Irish football boss formally over the weekend. At 8 o'clock, myself and Owen will be live for the full show from 8 to 10. What's coming up this morning? We'll have our usual lock-in lowdown. That's coming your way at 8:45. Stephen Hunt is going to join us. Richie Towell, obviously, who made his name under Stephen Kenny, is going to join us as well to talk about what they expect from the Stephen Kenny era. We're starting our very first Mount Rushmore. We're asking every county in Ireland to give us 2 of the 4 people who you would chisel into a wall. Remember, it's a very permanent thing. Chisel into a mountain. You can't go back on this. You've got to pick your 4 and that's it forever. So there's no change in. We've got Mayo, nice easy one coming up first at 20 past 9 this morning. As ever, we'd like to hear from you. You can WhatsApp us 087 9180 180. We're going to see you at 8 o'clock. But first, here's Gary Breen and Damien Delaney debating Stephen Kenny's appointment. Have a look.
Dan, a question to you as somebody who's been around Stephen Kenny for a long time and has a feel for the man. This obviously, there's big expectations over what he can do as manager. He has done fantastic things at different levels. He's got his teams playing a brand of football that we don't see Irish teams playing. I'm thinking in particular of Dundalk in Europe and how they bossed games in Europe. And so there'll be an expectation he can do that fairly quickly with Ireland. Has he spoken himself about the process of trying to get a team to play that kind of football? Is it something he feels takes time? It can key things be done fairly quickly? Because to be honest with you, we're looking for the fairly quickly route.
Yeah, I mean it's a good question, and obviously what Gary said there before, I do actually agree that I think some of the the predictions about what Stephen Kenny's Ireland might be like are sort of idealistic and almost building unbelievable expectations, like as he sort of alluded to. I mean, Stephen Kenny's teams have also been pragmatic, and at various times they've found ways to win games. So I think maybe just sometimes people are describing it as like a massive, like we're going to suddenly be playing like Spain or something 10 years ago. It's not really going to be like that, I don't think. But I think what you probably have is someone whose mindset, bottom line approach would be very positive. I think that would be in terms of probably team selection. It'll be interesting to see how much this happens straight away or over time. I think you'll see, he will favour defenders who like to step out and pick a pass, but he'll also, his teams have always been very good on set pieces and other, attention to detail. So it's not just sort of this sort of someone with a sort of an idea on a blackboard coming in. I think it'll be more practical, and we've seen with even the 21 side across the last year, I guess, or the year that he had, that in terms of personnel, You know, he mixed things and matched things at time in terms of the use of Troy Parrott and Aaron Connolly and various players, and, you know, left people out at various times. And I think also as well, I think he's very much conscious of, I think, you know, in terms of the staff as well and the role and very defined roles that they will all have within his group. And I think it's not just a case of, I don't know, the suggestion that it's just like, let's bring in some high-profile people. I think, you know, Damien Duff will replace Jim Crawford in terms of his role within the group, and I think he's built up a good working relationship with Keith Andrews, who's, I think, you know, very good in terms of operating with players. So I think you will see over time maybe a change in philosophy in terms of how the team plays. But I think it has to be over time. That's the only way that it can work. And, you know, I think he's at times in his managerial career, he's had lows. I think it was very important that he was allowed to pick his own staff. I think that was absolutely vital, that this is someone who's been given control over the plan. And as I do agree with what Gary said, like, he has been given a great opportunity, a platform, because people really want this to work. And I would say that, you know, every Irish manager for the last 10 years their remit has been to qualify for the next tournament for financial reasons, come what may. There's never really been any instruction beyond that. And I think at times that is very much informed decisions. And while Ireland still need to qualify for tournaments, that doesn't change. I think there's more of a realisation now that you have to give this project a bit of time to work. And it'll be interesting to see, I guess, you know, how patient people remain with that if it does take that small bit of time. And throwing the playoffs in there early, it's unusual, but I think his approach will be that you can go and win it, you can go and do it, and probably personnel selections will probably be quite positive in that regard.
Damien, what's your... Yeah, go on, Damien.
Immediately, Dan, sorry, that one thing we should see straight away is a different level of confidence in the team insofar as our starting positions as a back four. We're not just going out and waiting to be attacked and counter-attacking set pieces. That we'll see a different kind of appearance to the team insofar as the areas of the pitch that they're in. I mean, that's something that can immediately be done. That would come with confidence, you know. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, players like Matt Doherty and, you know, are involved prominently from the start, and, you know, sort of positive selections in wide areas, and and even just how the team will play. Like, it's a bit of a weird one though, because we just don't know how long he's going to have before, you know, the key games. And I mean, you lads know way more than me about that. Like, you know, you have a new manager and a new voice in the group. I mean, how long does it take to get a handle on what he wants from things? And that's why the timing of the Slovakia game and that not being first was obviously probably made things a lot easier for them.
Gary, do you want to come in on that, Gary?
That opening gambit to your players, that first team talk, those first training sessions are massive, because players can see very quickly through someone who's bluffing, who talks a good game, might be great in front of the camera. Can you produce it on the pitch? Is the message clear? And I think what we will have, everyone's talk about his lack of experience at international level, but this is a manager who's been managing for over 20 years, so he'll have a template in place. He'll know how to deliver that message. And I think that's something to look really forward to, because if you think of this group of players who is not our best ever, I think at times they were hung out to dry under Martin O'Neill in terms of not being prepped well enough, literally naming the team just before the kickoff. But it was interesting. I was always got a lot of time for Dan in terms of he spoke brilliantly there. And I think sometimes it needs to be aimed at people like Damien, who think that Stephen's suddenly going to start throwing the ball out to centre halves at right wing, left wing, and we're going to be the most expansive team we've ever seen. Damien, you're saying about the starting positions of defenders, giving them confidence. Mick McCarthy would have done all that, regardless of what you said about the result.
We never saw it.
We did see it. We did see centre halves playing up on the halfway line to congest that midfield. It was in stark contrast to our centre half defending that 18-yard box. That was a massive difference. If you didn't see that, I'd be very surprised, bearing in mind how experienced you are as a player.
In the groups between Martin O'Neill and Mick?
What's that? Say that again. Sorry, you cut out.
You're saying it's a different. You were saying that Mick made a big difference under Mick than under Martin O'Neill. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely, I do. I think he made a massive difference in terms of what he gave those players. I do believe that. Yeah, absolutely, I do.
I couldn't disagree more there. I think that it was the same template of just go out and counter-attack and defend. And, you know, we never had any, you know, we tried it against Denmark and we never had any real plan how to keep the ball, how to move it through the different thirds in the pitch, how to sustain attacks when we got teams pinned in.
So when we clear it, we pick up the second balls and sustain attack so we can get constant pressure on teams. I don't see it. I'm not saying that there's going to be a huge difference straight away when Stephen comes in, but there'll definitely be a difference in belief in terms of he won't be going in immediate saying things like, it's snatch your hand off to go to Denmark and get a draw.
Well, that might be in terms of how he delivers himself in front of the camera, Mick. I'm not saying that Stephen will be saying that, but it's very different in terms of having played under Mick and having know what's expected of you of a defender. I know for a fact, and I'd seen it, not just going back, because I think it's a long time since I played for him, and I'd be remiss to think that any manager hasn't evolved over that time. I hope he has. But I could see very much a big difference in how we had played. The results probably didn't suggest it. In terms of ball retention, I think we were in good positions. But again, the level of the players, their inability themselves to look after the ball was much more prevalent than the fact that they didn't have passing patterns of play set up from training.
Well, I disagree there. I didn't see. I mean, you can blame that on the players if you want, but I mean, just continuous talking down the players, saying that we don't want the players, we don't want the players. I mean, that needs to stop, man.
You never heard that from Mick McCarthy. We don't have the players. That's Martin O'Neill. You're mixing up the two regimes there.
But I said I heard it from you just there. That is the quality of player that we don't have. I mean, that needs to stop. I've
just said it, but you just said that Mick was saying we don't have it. Mick never said it.
No, he was saying you had said it, Gary. Gary, sorry, he was making the point that you had just said it. He wasn't saying Mick ever said it.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough. But I think all of us will agree we don't have players that we've had the quality we had in future years. I don't think this is our strongest generation. I think we'd all agree with that. But at the same time, I still believe that those players should be able to look after the ball better than they have done.
I'm not saying that we've got world-class players by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm saying the players are better than what we've shown in the last 4 years. 2 years under Mick and last 2 years under Martin. The group is better than what they've shown. I'm not saying we're world-class, or I'm not putting us in that bracket, but we're better than what we've shown.
Listen, that's something I said all along under Martin O'Neill, that I think they're better once they've been coached and given an idea of what expected to go out onto the pitch. I think they were given that under Mick. And I've come on to Joe and said, listen, people think I'm Mick McCarthy's man, and probably the way I'm arguing now is suggest that that's the case, but it's not. I'm only giving my argument on what I have seen under Mick, under no real loyalty to him as such.
No, I accept that, and you're always very honest. But can I just ask you, Gary? Then, if we go through the campaign very, very briefly here, the Gibraltar game, AstroTurf, windy, that's a mess, and then the 1-0 win over Georgia, that's the night of the tennis balls. They're his first two games. You give him a pass. The Denmark draw away from home, you'd have to say, there was a sense then he'd put the spirit back in the team for sure. Then they beat Gibraltar. Then September, it's a 1-1 draw at home to Switzerland. In October of last year, the 0-0 draw away to Georgia, 91st in the world. I watched some of it back last night. That just was a poor performance. That was the night Connolly came on late on. Georgia passed the ball better, there's no doubt. And then there was the Swiss 2-0 win in Switzerland the following week. And then our last game was the 1-1 draw at home to Denmark, where in fairness, they had a bit of a go and it was up-tempo. But I don't know, could you really say in the midst of all that there was massive improvement either? There's more in the group there, no?
No, listen, that's what I'm saying. Those players are capable of it, but they haven't shown it, have they? But my argument again is 1 minute. Let me finish. Let me finish the question. My argument is that the belief was that it's not changed from Martin O'Neill. It's changed massively in terms of the work that was done on the training ground. It has. There's no. Let's just listen to the players in terms of what they're saying. There's a clear message. We know what we're expected to do. Yeah. You know what it's like with players. It slowly seeps out, doesn't it? We heard it all the time under O'Neill that certain players didn't know what they were expected to do. Certain players didn't even know if they're playing within 20 minutes of the game as such. So that stuff has improved. Now, listen, in terms of results, I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. I've been massively disappointed with their performances, but I don't think it's been because they have not been coached how to play on the training field. I generally don't believe that.
But Gary, can I take your point there? So you're saying that Mick McCarthy did do the work on the training ground. We do have better players, but the players haven't shown it. I mean, I'm not blaming Mick. I'm just saying that it's time to move in a new direction and instill super confidence in players that when they're going out onto the pitch, they genuinely feel that when 21s were playing against England 21s, I'm pretty sure that Stephen wasn't talking about get a draw today. He took the game to them. I remember watching it when they played it in Tala. He took the game to Italy. And I think that's the road we need to go down. And listen, you're saying that Mick improved the confidence from Martin O'Neill. That wouldn't be hard because it was right on the floor. So we did move it along. From this state, Stephen Kenny's going to move it much further along. So
that's the hope. Yeah, that's the hope. Yeah, absolutely. But that's kind of different to what you did say there. But yeah, no, that's what I hope. I hope so. And we're looking at the scenario now. I'm thinking in terms of this succession plan. Well, and it's different how you phrase this, because ultimately you're thinking, well, why don't we just put Stephen in to begin with? And because time has been wasted. I'm not saying that what Mick has done was a waste of time, because I think, as I just explained, I think he's made a massive difference to that squad in terms of picking it up at their knees. But you look at the scenario now, and it's a massive... Listen, people are putting a lot of faith in Stephen. He hasn't got a CV that warrants that. Everyone keeps talking about Dundalk, but he's failed elsewhere in other jobs and success as well. So he has still a lot to prove. But don't build him up so much. Give him some time.
Lots of writing on this story. Brendan, where do you want to start? What caught your eye?
I suppose the front page of the Sunday Times, Joe. The figures are always kind of mind-blowing with these things, and Paul Rowan and Mark Tighe have a piece on the front page of their paper. Towards the end of it, it's the figures that really jump out. And they say that even after the scheduled exit fee for Mick, the FAI budgeted for its overall international management teams, including the under-21s, to cost 1.19 million in 2021. The figure for 2019 was 3.19 million when Martin O'Neill was coach and his management team received significant termination fees. So just in that one snapshot, you see exactly what's happening here. The backstory of where the FAI is at and where it's come from doesn't need any more exploring at this stage. But just in terms of financial figures, that's a huge saving already. It goes into a bit more detail on what McCarthy was on and what Stephen Kenny will be on. Basically, the difference there per annum is 1.2 million against 540,000, and that's reflected down the pyramid as well with the international management team staffs. So from a financial point of view, it's really kind of getting back to a sense of normality after all the excess of getting Trapp in, getting O'Neill in, the management teams that were there. Very much more in keeping with what you'd imagine an Irish manager should be earning. On the football point of view then as well, it makes sense as well. So I think this kind of, it ticks both boxes.
Yeah, McCarthy, they write in that piece on the front page of the Sunday Times, annual salary of 1.2 million, while Kenny will be paid 540,000. McCarthy's assistant, Terry Connor, was on €243,000. Robbie Keane was on about 250,000. The FAI hopes to have the entire wage of Stephen Kenny's backroom team, including an assistant and goalkeeping coach, limited to €250,000 wage cuts linked to the COVID-19 pandemic imposed on FAI staff last week. And Philip Quinn takes that angle on the finances on the back page of the Mail. They quote his interview with FAI TV where he says he was hugely disappointed to be departing as Irish manager. Quinn writes that he could be in line for a further €1 million bonus should the team he leaves go on to qualify for the Euro finals. That was in his contract. Now, Gary Doyle, as Nathan mentioned just before the ad break there, is reporting that perhaps that €1 million bonus would be shared between Kenny and Mick McCarthy. That is all subject to confirmation. But Quinn writes, McCarthy will have earned around 3.2 million for 10 games as manager, potentially a staggering 320,000 per match if you divide it up that way. That's assuming he's paid up until the end of his contract in July. In effect, and this is a crazy thing to say, Mary, I know, but really for Mick McCarthy, this is not about the money. He's been managing since the mid-90s regularly. I'm sure he has more than enough to see him out to the end of his days, even though we are talking about these huge sums. For him, I'm sure it's the disappointment of not getting to finish on a high with the team, potentially, to get to a European Championships.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, Mick McCarthy is 61 years of age. He's had a long career as a player, obviously. He's had 2 spells in charge of Ireland. I was interested in Daniel MacDonald article in the Irish Sunday Independent today, where he spoke about quoting Mick McCarthy, saying that, he was happy with that decision, gave everybody clarity, but it was bittersweet. I think for Mick McCarthy, it runs deeper than money. I think at this stage, at 61 years of age, he's made his fortune. But it's interesting that, the amount of coverage that it has got in the short time that the writers across all the newspapers had to get the articles put to paper today. But I thought Daniel MacDonald's article and Paul Rowan's article in the of the Times were really good articles and really gave us a sense of maybe, you know, where the situation has emerged from, and maybe give us a kind of that bit of hope towards Stephen Kenny and the under-21s, the way they have been playing free-flowing football, that maybe he might remain steadfast to his own beliefs and bring that to the senior team, because I think the genuine supporter out there is looking for that type of that type of football that the other 21s have been so brilliantly displaying, all being taking into account senior international football is a different kettle of fish altogether.
Brendan, in Daniel McDonald's piece that Mary mentions there, he writes, it's understood that the FAI ultimately concluded that in this new era for the association it was important to go by the book. And then he quotes a source who says, what you want is to be straight and upfront with people. It was a hard call, but the right call. From a reputational point of view, it wouldn't look well. And I suppose when that source says it wouldn't look well, I presume he or she means it wouldn't look well if we started ignoring the letter of the contracts and meddling around into the sphere of some kind of, you know, back channel deal and, you know, whose moral right is it to get into the Euros. They decided ultimately, and I think particularly once the June date for the Slovakia game was moved into Stephen Kenny's tenure, and it must be stated that Mick McCarthy has not earned this playoff. If Ireland had finished last in the group, they would still have this playoff. It is a legacy of the Nations League and Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane's time. So it's not like finishing third has got Mick and the team into this playoff. That was happening regardless. And once we went from June, post-August 1st, into post-August 1st, Stephen Kenny's tenure, the decision was probably that bit easier, and the decision to, as the source who talked to Dan McDonald said, to just go straight down the line, up front with people, you know, this is as clear as could be.
It's literally a black and white issue. I think at one point in Dan's piece he says the contracts of the two managers were clearly date bound.
Yeah.
So everything else is just conjecture, wishful thinking, whether or not you think Mick McCarthy should have got the opportunity to take Ireland to Euro 2021 as it is now, or whether you're in the Stephen Kenny camp, get him in and give him as much time with his feet under the table as possible. It's absolutely immaterial. And again, we've mentioned already the backstory with everything that's happening with the FAI at the moment. How could they not look at it in any other way and just say, regardless of any other debate or arguments that were done by teleconference call this week, it's very simple. As soon as somebody says, lads, look at the two contracts, it is in black and white here, and we of all people are in no position to actually kind of cut around corners or dig deeper into anything here. This is how it states. And as you mentioned as well, Joe, I mean, the fact that Ireland are in this playoff semi-final against Slovakia is down to, frankly, an appalling system in UEFA, where our terrible performance in the Nations League still gets us this back channel into a possible major tournament. We mentioned briefly the footballing side of it at the start, and Mary mentioned the football that Stephen Kenny's under-21s are playing. You know, the ball stats of Mick McCarthy's Ireland in his 16 months in charge are 1-3, 2 against Gibraltar, 1 against Georgia, 8 games, 7 goals. Now, there are a few little pointers that you can make to that. I mean, he jumped straight into a qualifying campaign. He didn't have any friendlies at all to kind of, you know, bet himself back in. And again, that's another reason why maybe in a purely footballing sense that this could be good for Stephen Kenny and for the Republic of Ireland. A lot of conjecture still about when this playoff will actually be played. A few of the lads writing in the paper today are saying that could go back to February or March, that UEFA will be more amenable to having the big guns out for the Nations League in the autumn. So automatically that might give Stephen Kenny and his new management team games against Bulgaria and Finland at the very least to try out a few things. And as we just mentioned, the Nations League is so bonkers a tournament that who knows, maybe they could lose those games again, still have a back door down to something down the line. So it's a win-win for me.
You suspect the FAI probably have their channels in UEFA and have heard through the grapevine that the playoff against Slovakia will be put back to March. Now, what happens to the World Cup qualifiers? I don't know. I mean, they have a bit of wiggle room in the calendar, given that it's December 2022 when the World Cup is due to happen. Anybody who is pretending to be certain about anything in the current situation is, frankly, not telling the truth. So we just don't know where that's going to go. And I guess, Mary, one of the key points, and it's in Dan's piece, is that this is legally clear, because a couple of weeks ago when we were first talking about this, we knew Stephen Kenny's contract was clear, i.e. 1st of August. And there was definitely some concrete information that Mick McCarthy's contract had a date in it. But we weren't sure if it may have also included until the end of the European campaign, which may have muddied the waters somewhat. But once it was legally clear, then that made the decision very straightforward.
Yeah, just I suppose outlines to everybody that, you know, this is big business as well, and there's legalities to it. Look, obviously from a supporter point of view and from a fan point of view, you know, you want your country to succeed, and this type of sideshow distraction is gone now. You know, there's clarity there. I think everybody will appreciate that. But 31st of July was the cut-off date. It was obviously clear in the contract as well, and you know, the decision was taken by the FAI. And in the same paper, actually, Eamon Sweedy's article on the McCarthy-Kenny, we'd say, saga, he speaks that it was surprising and entirely predictable regarding the FAI decision. But then he speaks that, you know, McCarthy leaving is kind of a testament to the last vestiges of the John Delaney era. And I think, you know, the FAI must be credited on making this swift decision. As I said, I have no doubt that Mick McCarthy is disappointed to be leaving and they know he's left. I think there's clarity there now. We just need to move on with it, you know, and I, for one, will be watching with bated breath to see how we get on.
Yeah, certainly the football Stephen Kenny has managed over the past, 20-odd years, has suggested that we hopefully are in for some interesting times with Ireland. Damien Duff now officially part of his backroom team, if you're just tuning in, as is Keith Andrews. Alan Kelly, goalkeeping coach. Jim Crawford stays with the under-21s, and John O'Shea comes in to assist him. That was the official dispatch from the FAI in the last hour. And Mary, just to give people a sense who won't have all the papers today, we will finish off the McCarthy-Kenny situation. I wouldn't have said reading everything there's any great sense of this is the wrong decision or necessarily this is the right decision. Like Eamon Sweeney makes the point that the FAI have acted with unusual decisiveness to usher in the age of Stephen Kenny. I see John Brennan makes the point in the Sunday World that McCarthy was encouraged to go, and having thought about it, he went. And there's a few bits and pieces about the finances which we've touched on. But in the main, I think Mick McCarthy and the very, very classy, dignified, not surprisingly, interview he gave to FAI TV, the way he is elected to depart the scene has made this far easier on the FAI, far easier on Stephen Kenny, and not led to a couple of days of backbiting and recrimination, and this is no way to treat an Irish legend and all that kind of stuff. Instead, I think he's taken the higher road, not surprisingly.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's a kind of a testament to the man, and I think, you know, it does make the road a lot smoother, and it allows Stephen to start straight away without having to, I suppose, deal with any acrimony. I think also it's important to remember that this is less than 24 hours old as well. I think, you know, he broke it yesterday evening around 4 p.m. So people are reacting now. You know, I think in a couple of days people might respond differently, but I think absolutely Mick McCarthy's reaction to this has been key, because that has allowed, you know, the FAI and for Stephen to actually not have to deal with a situation today where they're probably having to defend their decision. Obviously, there's contractual arrangements, but I think the key to this has been Mick McCarthy's reaction, and I think it's for the betterment of Irish football. And I'd like to think when Mick was a player and his 2 spells as manager, over 78 games for the country as manager, I think, you know, it shows that he's at the heart of it. Ireland was at his heart, and I think that's important.
Yes, and a final word, Brendan, on it before we move on. Of course, we could be sat here potentially in September and Stephen Kenny's first game in charge is against Slovakia, and it mightn't go well, and it would be easy to say, well, was this the best preparation for a huge game like that? But from this vantage point, and it's only at this vantage point that the FAI can make their decisions, it would seem like it has generally been accepted, it is clear-cut, this is not going to rebound massively on them.
Yeah, and you made the point earlier, Joe, that you'd imagine the people in the FAI have their contacts in UEFA, and that they would be pretty confident that we're not going to see that playoff game this side of Christmas. And just finally, like, one point that struck me, and I'm not saying it had anything to do with Mick's reaction to the situation, but if you look at it from Mick's point of view, we still don't know when that game is going to be on. That could have been on next March for all we know. Yeah. So you could be waiting 11 months for one game, and you lose in Bratislava or whatever it is, you're done. So flip that another way. We still don't know where the domestic season in the UK or anywhere else is going to go. But if Mick McCarthy is done now, he is, as I saw a quote somewhere in the papers today, he's eager to get back into management. And if we saw anything from the Martin O'Neill situation when that went south so quickly at the end of his time in charge. It didn't do Martin O'Neill any harm whatsoever in getting another go at English club football with Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
So I think, it'd be interesting to see, does Mick have the same, how would I put it, the same advocates in the English media as Martin O'Neill did, but he's a guy with a huge track record, as Mary said earlier, and this now places him in a position where he's available for employment again, having, even though, like you say, it's because of the Nations League, having taken Ireland to a de facto playoff semi-final.
Yeah.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This is OTB Sports Radio, Thursday Night Football with John Giles.
Who was that talking?
Troy Deeney.
Well, I think he should keep his mouth shut and have more respect for the opposition when he plays against them. And look at himself. If he was such a great player and was able to do all the things that he's talking to other people not doing, he wouldn't be on the bench. He'd be out there playing.
The best analysis of all the week's football from Ireland's #1 football man.
Obviously, after the Munich disaster, it was thrust on Bobby. And there was an awful lot of pressure on Bobby. He was carrying the team, and he handled himself brilliantly, and he played unbelievable stuff.
John Giles, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
Right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along this Monday morning. We're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed because we had a lie-on. It turns out you're all having lie-ons too, and that's why we're starting a little bit later. From the data that we've seen, it turns out that a lot of people who would normally listen to us on our commute from 7:30 in the morning, you sit there and you wait for us to come on, and that's not happening as much. People are actually listening to us later on in the day, and we're like, okay, well, we understand how these things work, Owen's kind of rolling from his bed to his desk and not much in between. His commute has come down from like 20 minutes to less than 10 seconds. And so we're starting a little bit later, Owen, and I, for one, welcome our new late starting overlord, as somebody tweeted this morning.
There is no data to support this decision, sure. It is literally just to do with having more of an eye in. Let's face up to what the reality is here. We can enjoy this. Everybody at home can enjoy this, because I'm sure people, let's not forget the fact that people were probably getting out of the bed to catch the 7:30 start time anyway. You too can be like us and enjoy that sweet extra 30 minutes in bed now.
Yeah, okay. There's news to talk about. We'll come back to that. Anyway, we'll come back to that. There is news to talk about this weekend. We had an exclusive on Saturday afternoon where we broke the news that the decision had been made and that Mick McCarthy had been informed that he was no longer going to be the Ireland manager. And what we've seen over the last 24 hours, I think, is people coming to terms with the fact that that has happened, and a bit more information and data to build a theme here has come out. So we now know Stephen Kenny's the makeup of his backroom team. We know Mick McCarthy's in line for a good old payday, like not once but twice. And Robbie Keane is in limbo at the moment. Interesting kind of saga on Robbie Keane over the last 24 hours or so. So we can there's a lot to unpack, but all in all, this is not a million miles away from what we predicted would happen last week. On
exactly. Once we knew that the decision could be made, that the playoff was going to go beyond July and there was no chance of it happening before then the FAI could actually make a decision. We were kind of saying last week that the FAI could make a decision in the next couple of hours if they wanted to, speaking from the vantage point of last week. I don't think many of us actually expected them to go ahead and do it. So I think, first off, most people have been quite impressed with how swiftly the FAI have actually acted and how quickly they have acted. They've clearly had a very clear idea on which way they wanted the international team to go. It may have been more of a cost-saving measure. Who knows what it would have been in the long run if you had to employ both men. But I think really initially you have to say that it is a little bit of a turn from the FAI from December 2018. Now, of course, there's a new hierarchy. Things have changed massively at the FAI since December 2018, and a lot of time has passed since then. So you can't really blame any organisation who have shifted a little bit, because the whole process of appointing Mick McCarthy in the first place was that he was the safe pair of hands to get us to Euro 2020. There is still a playoff to be played, and they have, in reality, decided that Stephen Kenny is actually the pair of hands that they would like to guide us to Euro 2020. Now, of course, it's complicated by the fact that there was a contract to be honoured, and the FAI need to be seen to be doing everything properly at this point, and honouring a contract would be one of those proper things to do. So it is more than just a football decision, far more than just a football decision. But there are numerous different threads here about what the FAI wanted,
about perhaps the inner workings about how annoyed Mick McCarthy may actually be about this, because I don't know about you, Joe, but he certainly came across with great grace at the weekend, and perhaps this opens doors for him as well as a club manager over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, it's win-win for Mick McCarthy in many respects, in that he got the team to the playoff, and if they don't win in the playoff, it has no reflection on him because he's got no involvement with the team. He gets paid the golden handshake that he was going to get anyway. He is now free to take up a new job, so there's no sense of him being in limbo or having to do a renegotiated deal with the FAI at a much lower level, obviously because of the straitened financial situation that they find themselves in. And it appears that if Ireland qualify, he's due a bonus for Ireland's qualification. Now, I mean, you would like to think that that's the type of thing that down the line, a manager who isn't actually involved in the team qualifying at the end waives that, especially in the situation that the FAI find themselves in. But I don't know. I mean, footballers and contracts, it's written down. That's the FAI have said that they would be happy to honour that. So, a slightly bizarre situation where he would actually end up making 2 million odd from today on if Ireland were to qualify for the Euros, which is a lot of money for an organisation like the FAI. It will be entirely more than the full backroom team and the next manager are getting over that period of time as well, which, you know, look, I guess it just goes to show how out of kilter those contracts were in the first place. But yeah, so it's worked out pretty well for Mick McCarthy, and I think that would be one of the reasons why he has taken this with such good grace. Frees him up for the job market, pays him a lot of cash straight away, and removes all the pressure. So you can definitely see why it's a win from his perspective.
It seemed, listening to Gary Owens on with Joe yesterday, that the FAI would be rolling in cash next year were Ireland's to actually qualify for Euro 2021, and therefore actually paying Mick McCarthy is actually just a bit of a footnote. The bonus is just a bit of a footnote, but actually it's not. Every penny counts in the organisation at the moment, particularly an amount of cash of that magnitude, that actually the opportunity would be to perhaps, I don't know, balance other areas of the organisation where they'd qualify for Euro 2021 and not have to kind of shovel out a huge bonus at this point. But that's not his problem. That was something that was organised in a previous regime, and possibly for some time, the last absurd fee that is sort of handed out from the FAI for an amount of time. We don't know, but certainly Stephen Kenny's wages will be lower. They seem a bit more normal for an international manager of the scale of the Republic of Ireland team, and I guess that's probably something to be a bit more content about over the next couple of years. But yeah, like it's like it's not, you're not really comparing like when you look at other international managers and what they'll be getting bonus wise. Like I saw the figure in the Irish Times this morning that Southgate's bonus for qualifying England for the 2018 World Cup was 280 grand, and then Mick McCarthy's bonus is thought to be somewhere in the region of 1 million to qualify them for this Euros, which I perhaps, of course, England and qualification isn't as big a deal for us, but perhaps crystallises just how important this tournament is for Ireland. And it was so important that they had to actually install two managers. They had to get the safe pair of hands in before backing the exciting new manager back in December 2018. And as I've said, that has shifted a little bit. But just like on Stephen Kenny, is this not a really good time to be coming in as an international manager? Like, it has been put out there that perhaps there's still a chance that his first game could be against Slovakia in a playoff, which of course is a baptism of fire, not an ideal first game. But is this not kind of the feeling of a pre-season for everybody at the moment, that the season has stopped, that the changing of a guard in any situation now in football perhaps comes with its benefits as well, that everybody is starting from an equal-ish footing, that the teams that have built up a lot of cohesion, that the managers that have been there for a long time and have taken a couple of steps back. I think this is actually a good time, and I think that if he gets a couple of friendlies or a couple of Nations League games under his belt as Ireland manager, this would have been a perfect setting for Stephen Kenny.
Well, sorry, I was going to ask you, do you mean then that if the best possible scenario would be to have that game against Slovakia and then immediately after it, the final? So whatever your team are doing, you're at an advantage, and it is that proper baptism of fire, because if you a couple of games and everybody goes back into their normal routine, and if there are a couple of friendlies, you've got to assume that there will be months of football under everybody's belt by the time the actual qualifier happens. So which of these you're saying qualifiers? So your friendlies, a couple of months of football, and then the qualifier playoff.
Well, I think that would be an ideal situation for everybody involved. Like, I think the idea, like, I definitely think that it's not the worst time to be coming in. I think it's actually a good time to be coming in as a new manager. But at the same time, would you take the option of having a bit of a bedding in period, especially if we expect a bit of a change in the style of play? And I say a bit of a change in the style of play, you would probably take the bedding in period, wouldn't you?
You would, of course, you would. And like at the same time, the point you made about it being the great equaliser, everybody is losing muscle wastage, and certain footballers are partying hard, it turns out, as opposed to actually, well, maybe there's some load-bearing exercises going on in Kyle Walker's house that are not prescribed by the strength and conditioning team at. But look, a lot of other footballers are actually, taking this as downtime and having a pre-season. We'll come back to that story a little bit later on. But I think you're right. I think that certainly because of the change in style, and because it's a new era, a couple of games, play those playoffs, qualify for the tournament in Dublin, and that's the greatest start that anybody's ever had in international football. Yeah. We're allowed to get a little bit carried away in this darkness at the moment about a new manager. There's definitely a shot in the arm for everybody involved in Irish football right now, because it is unwritten. No one knows what's going to happen. There's like months and months and months of this now where we can go, but Stephen Kenny's our manager. And then like the videos will start doing the rounds of the under-21 team playing well. The videos will start doing the rounds of highlights from Dundalk's campaign. We're going to talk to Richie Towell a little bit later on. Like, you can see that this is exactly the right thing from a morale point of view for Irish football to do as well.
Absolutely, Jared. Like, I don't want to be too negative on Mick McCarthy, especially considering his tenure is now over. But there was a similar tone to how it was when Trapattoni started to, I guess, get bogged down a little bit post Euro 2012. Similarly with Martin O'Neill post Euro 2016. Like, without being just the harbinger of doom really here, I just kind of felt that even if we qualified for Euro 2020, things might have taken a similar turn. I don't know why I had that feeling, because he's obviously been a great manager for the country in the past. But I don't know, there was just a lot of negativity around that Georgia draw away, the losing to Switzerland away, even the frustration that came with drawing with Denmark at home and wondering, what couldn't we play like this at all times? There was a feeling that we were underachieving still under Mick McCarthy, and I just felt it was going to get worse.
I look, and again, I don't want to nitpick, but I would say that using the phrase great manager, I disagree. I don't think he's ever been a great manager for Ireland. I think Mick's a championship manager. We've had this debate again and again and again. And ultimately, we don't know what Stephen Kenny's going to be at international football. So I wish him all the best. Now, let's get to some of the comments, because we've obviously had a raft of comments rolling in over the whole weekend. If anybody has any comments for us today, you can get us on WhatsApp, 0879 180 180. Just add the number there, and we'll take your comments across the rest of the show, especially extended show from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock every morning here on OTB AM across all of our channels. And we've already seen bigger numbers this morning than we would have had at 7:30. So it turns out you are all lying in, rolling out of bed and going, what am I going to do? And it turns out you want some top quality sports content. That's why you come to us. Here we go. Davey says, sure, Mick would never beat Slovakia. Look at the way we played against feckin' Georgia away. A fair point. A very fair point. We finished third in the group. It's the right decision. Stephen Kenny is a great football man. Will be a force in world football with him in charge, says Frankie. IJ says, what a mess. He was 100% cut down by the knees before he was given a chance. I'm not even the biggest fan of McCarthy, but he was absolutely shafted by a ridiculous contract. So disrespectful by the FAI. Rob says, the job is going to be too much for Kenny. He'll be eaten up and spat out. He's a media darling at the moment, but that will change after a few bad results. McCarthy should have had the job until our interest in the Euros ended. I mean, Rob, I see a lot of people making that point that it was a contract to take Ireland through to the Euros, but it wasn't. Obviously, it was a moment in time. Specifically, it ran out at the end of July. So what you're saying is the FAI would have needed to renegotiate the contract that they had with McCarthy and annoy the person who was a loyal employee at under 21 level who was going to be the manager after that. Potentially, if the playoffs got kicked back down the road, Mick would have been in charge for some of the qualifiers for the World Cup that was supposed to be Stephen Kenny's gig. How would that have worked? Would you have said, oh, Mick's not going to take the Ireland team now, Stephen Kenny's going to take this Ireland team, a different squad, a different style of play, and then Mick comes back in for the playoffs? Like, it was a complete mess. And so I actually don't think there was any other way around for the FAI here. But the issue of respect, we haven't spoken about this once. The big issue that still remains, Owen, is what happens with Robbie Keane. So Claudine Keane, Robbie's wife, was on Twitter critical of Dan McDonnell saying, "Oh, hang on a second, this isn't true. It's not what's going to happen." And Dan was saying that Robbie wasn't going to be part of the management setup and had some details. I think this might have been on Sunday. A lot happened over the weekend, so if I got any of the specifics of the time wrong, and subsequently, Dan's story proved to be entirely accurate, and Claudine says that she was finding stuff out from the media, which isn't a great look either in all this, because you don't want Robbie Keane to be walking away and having ill feeling towards the FAI at the end of this, while at the same time Stephen Kenny has to pick his own backroom team. So there's just a little bit of management to be done around this.
Like, Robbie Keane is still a young coach who is starting off on a new career. The fact is, we just don't know how good Robbie Keane is going to be as a coach. You don't know how successful he's going to be as a coach. To be looking back on this situation in a few years' time, thinking to ourselves, God, why did we burn that bridge, would obviously be a terrible situation to be in. Like, it's interesting to look at what Claudine Keane has been saying over the course of the weekend, that there hasn't been any real official communication, or that it's interesting that they are finding it out via the media. Like, Gary Owens obviously yesterday was quite reluctant to actually say anything to Joe on the status of Robbie Keane, because he didn't want this to be dragged out through the media. He did want to actually go and have a conversation with Robbie himself, or the FAI needed to have a conversation with Robbie themselves. So I'm not sure how those two things tally. Perhaps Dan obviously had a story that maybe the FAI didn't want to get out at that particular time. So it's hard to know what to do with this situation, especially because is there a role in the 21s now? Is everything at capacity is the question I would have. And then Robbie Keane
just on that, right? Obviously Robbie Keane's contract probably was a senior gig, and it looked like Robbie Keane was being groomed to be Mick McCarthy's successor, but then the Stephen Kenny thing happened, and so that all went tits up. But Robbie Keane could easily do what Keith Andrews did and work with the younger players, who then you get the under-21 gig, or you get involved with the under-21s. You've already had some experience with them and you're deeply embedded in that. And then it becomes inevitable that you're going to be involved with the senior team and with Robbie Keane's profile, and you would hope that the experience that he's adding at club level, if he wants to be the Ireland manager, go and serve your time and get a full understanding of exactly what's going to happen, because he's, as you say, he's a young man. There's plenty of time for him to be the Ireland manager.
Totally. My question is there room for him on the under-21 train? And it just seems that they had moved to almost appoint a few people under the 21s between Crawford and O'Shea, for example. Are we now?
I don't think there's any room there. No, doesn't seem like is there.
So that's what I mean. I just don't know where Robbie Keane now. I don't know where he falls into all of this. It just seemed that the FAI acting quickly and decisively has been a theme in everything they've done over the last couple of days, telling Mick McCarthy he's not got the job, telling Stephen Kenny he has got the job, appointing Stephen Kenny's backroom team, sorting out the hole now left in the Republic of Ireland under 21s. It just seems unusual that a very important part of your financial outlay as an FAI employee has been left hanging. That just seems really unusual, because everything else has been done really quickly.
Well, obviously, they just need to get a deal done and negotiate something. And maybe Robbie becomes an ambassador, and he's no involved in the football side, but he clearly wants to be involved in the football side. So, look, we'll come back to that a little bit later on. We'll talk to Stephen Hunt about it and talk about he's part of our show a little bit later on, Richie Towell as well. And I'll tell you exactly what's coming up in just a minute. But first, the full sports bulletin here at, 8:17 a.m. this morning, this Monday morning, the 6th of April. Republic of Ireland manager Stephen Kenny says there's a lot to look forward to once football resumes. The sport is obviously in limbo at the moment, and there's still no confirmation of when Ireland will face Slovakia in their European Championship playoff. But he's done an interview with FAI TV, and he's expected to do a round of interviews today as well, where he'll talk about his philosophy and his excitement about what the role will entail. Robbie Keane could still have a role to play with the FAI. That was the news coming through over the last 24 hours. FAI interim CEO Gary Owens has revealed that talks are ongoing with Keane and his agent. Obviously, Keith Andrews, Damien Duff and Alan Kelly are part of the senior setup. It doesn't look like there's any room there. And John O'Shea was named as Jim Crawford's assistant at under 21 level. By the way, an underrated appointment here. I think John O'Shea is somebody who has had one of the best and most interesting football careers that any Irish player has ever had. And so you're really hoping, I don't know enough about what impact he's having at coaching level at Reading, but I'm very excited about what kind of a career he's going to have. Also seems like a really good person. UEFA President Alexander Seferin has warned the Champions League and Europa League could be abandoned if coronavirus restrictions remain into September. The preferred option would obviously be to play the fixtures behind closed doors. Both competitions have been indefinitely postponed. And Kyle Walker is facing disciplinary action from Manchester City after breaking the UK government's rules on social distancing amid the coronavirus pandemic. The England defender has apologised for his actions after it was widely reported he held a party at his home last week, is what it says here. But what kind of a party was it? According to the tabloids, it was a sex party. Himself and one of his mates invited two young ladies around, and one of the ladies ended up selling her story to the Sun newspaper. And the details of it are quite lurid and obviously quite funny. But poor Kyle Walker, like, he should not be stepping out of line right now, because people are going to be asking, is Kyle Walker any good at football? Like, is he really the best right back that Man City have and that England have? Is that where the world is at? I think somebody in Kyle Walker's situation should have just kept himself a little bit under the radar if he could have. The PGA Championship is set to be rescheduled for August, according to reports in the US. The tournament was due to take place in May, but was obviously postponed last month. The major is expected to remain at Harding Park in San Francisco. Trump had a conference call with many of the leading sports organizers over the course of the weekend and made it clear that he expects as much as possible to go ahead as scheduled. So we'll see if that's actually going to happen. 20 minutes past 8 this morning. Here's what's coming up on the show. Sports pages, we're 10 minutes behind, but obviously it's a big story that we were trying to tease out there. If you guys have views on Mick McCarthy and Stephen Kenny, 087 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can also just leave a comment on whatever stream you're watching this on. The YouTube comments are the easiest ones for us to get. We're also looking at the Periscope and Facebook ones, and we'll bring you through the sports pages now. Richie Towell is going to join us in 10 minutes. We've got the lockdown lowdown coming your way at 8:45. Plenty of sports in the lowdown this morning. Stephen Hunt at 9 o'clock. Mayo's Mount Rushmore at 20 minutes past 9. Who else could we have got other than Nathan Murphy to talk to us about Mayo's Mount Rushmore? I think he's going to put Kevin Kilbane on it.
He probably will. Like, this is football man Nathan Murphy. Like, Kevin Kilbane, in terms of Nathan Murphy's lifespan, I'm sure would have been a heroic figure for him, not just as an Irish footballer, but as a representative of Ackle and as a representative of Mayo. And of course, he's gone on to have a great career as a Mayo GAA fan after his football playing career. Why wouldn't you put him in? It's my question.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, we'll deal with that in just a little while. Let's bring you through the papers this morning.
OTB AM.
So, offtheball.com, football, the 32 Mount Rushmore's episode 1, Mayo's Greatest Sports People, is our lead story. It's whetting your appetite for what's going on this morning. And then we also have a story about Nigel Benn's brother, an NFL legend. Both pass away after COVID-19 diagnosis. This is Shane Hannon's story this morning. The brother of legendary boxer Nigel Benn has passed away. Mark Benn was the joker of the house when they were growing up. This is a tweet from Nigel Benn, and obviously everybody passes their condolences on to the Benn family. And then the NFL legend, just trying to work out who this one is. So Saints kicker Tom Dempsey, who was just 63, Tom Dempsey has passed away after contracting coronavirus as well. So he was a record holder and a legendary figure back in the 1970s. So coronavirus having an impact on the sports world in terms of fatalities at the moment as well. And then obviously there's loads of reaction and analysis to what's gone on over the course of the weekend with the Stephen Kenny situation. So that is your lead story on offtheball.com this morning. And okay, so next up it is the Irish Independent. The Irish Independent obviously leading, of course, this morning with all of the McCarthy and Kenny stuff. And they're obviously interested particularly in the Robbie Keane stuff. Robbie and FAI on collision course as tense talks loom is Aidan Fitzmaurice's story, which also is the lead on the back of the Herald. Kenny's time is now. Dan McDonnell, new manager's goal is to create a modern team that tackles a stereotype. This was kind of one of the key debating points yesterday between Gary Breen and Damien Delaney about the confidence that Stephen Kenny is going to give players immediately and the work that's going to happen on the training ground to give the players confidence to keep the ball. And Gary Breen was saying that he thought that was actually happening under Mick McCarthy. Damien Delaney was saying there was no evidence of it. So we'll talk with Richie Towell, we'll talk with Stephen Hunt a little bit later on as well. And that story, we're happy to pay McCarthy bonuses if Kenny brings Ireland to the Euros.
Examiner this morning, Ger, leads with the dawn of a... Sorry, Ger. The dawn of a fascinating new chapter. Too eager to hop in there. The dawn of a fascinating new chapter is the headline on the Irish Examiner, a photograph of Mick McCarthy and Stephen Kenny shaking hands. It's Liam Mackey writing this morning. He's also writing that the FAI boss is happy to pay McCarthy bonus if Ireland get to Euros. That is Gary Owens, and his quotes from yesterday also asking who will step up from Kenny's kids. And FIFA prepares for wave of appeals against wage cuts. This is the ongoing wage-paying saga in Premier League football and beyond, about whether or not clubs should be putting staff on the furlough scheme, despite having quite an amount of money in the bank. Manchester City not going to get on that train, it seems. So there's going to be a lot of appeals, according to this piece in a report seen by Reuters yesterday about FIFA and pay cuts.
Yeah, we can get into that story for the rest of the week. The Irish Times this morning, Kenny looks forward to unprecedented first year. It is going to be an unprecedented start to a new manager's career, where there's immediately a playoff and the opportunity to qualify for a tournament that's happening on your doorstep. Like, look, it's a mouth-watering prospect. Ken Early's column, McCarthy Part 2 was no blockbuster, more of a flop. And understated manager offers a ray of light in dark times. Verve and brio Kenny's teams play with can often seem at odds with his public persona. So look, I think people are going to start discovering a bit more about Stephen Kenny. We've put up all of the interviews that Stephen Kenny has done with us over the last 18 months to 2 years. They're all up available for you now to look at on offtheball.com, and that kind of gives you an insight into him as a person, his background, and what kind of a character he's going to be. This notion that he's a media darling, it's actually not true. It's not that he's like this Oscar Wilde figure dripping with epigrams. He can be very thoughtful in interviews and ultimately is a brilliant communicator, but it's not that he's somebody who's like, it's not like he's going to be Roy Keane, where there's a massive sudden surge of people reading and listening and talking about every single thing that he says in press conferences. It's actually the opposite to that. I think people trust the career arc that he's had, and that's why people are excited about it. I just think it's relatively simple. Obviously, Brian Kerr had a fairly similar level of excitement when he ended up being unveiled as the Ireland manager, and that didn't work out for Brian Kerr or for Irish football. Now, there's obviously loads of different reasons why that didn't happen, but so obviously that's a bit of a cautionary tale from. What's next?
The London Times this morning, Ger, leads with fans' anger at Liverpool for furlough use. Rivals City rule out seeking government cash. This is Paul Joyce and Paul Hurst reporting this morning. You've also got a photograph there of Kyle Walker. Walker shame over call girls, and a virtual race watched by 4.8 million people. This is the virtual Grand National, which of course took place on Sunday, grabbing about half the audience the actual Grand National got 12 months previously. So I think it's a roaring success. The most watched cartoon ever, perhaps, in the UK. Has anybody put those statistics together? But 4.8 million people for the virtual Grand National. An incredible stat, really.
Yeah. Welsh rugby player Jonathan Davis owns the horse that won the virtual race. Are they virtual owners, or is this like real horses mocked up into cartoons? How does it work? I don't know.
Unfortunately, Ger, I didn't actually put aside the 12 to 15 minutes of my day on Saturday to actually delve into what the virtual Grand National was. But I think you're onto something there. Given that there is actual real connections to the horses here, there's bound to be some sort of reality in it. And maybe describing it as a cartoon was an insult to everybody involved.
The Herald backpage this morning, players can't be treated as kids, says Richard Dunn in his column. Kenny's blueprint for success. Weight of 5 heavy, says Darcy. So Declan Darcy's been talking about the try for 5 and how much of a burden it was on the Dublin team last year. And then Robbie out and cold. FAI set for talks to decide Keane severance deal. So it's looking like they are talking payoff here, according to Aidan Fitzmaurice's piece, as opposed to actually finding a role for him over the next couple of years. So we'll wait and see exactly what happens with that. I'm sure there'll be information in the next 24 hours or so, and that loose end will be tied up.
The Irish Sun this morning is Clappy New Year. with a photograph there of Stephen Kenny applauding the supporters. Kenny assures fans the future is bright green. Shanks for nothing then is the headline around the Liverpool story. Cop slam furlough move, while National a virtual hit for charity, as we've just mentioned. Neil O'Riordan has an exclusive here that Mick call to wish pair luck. So Mick McCarthy rang Stephen Kenny yesterday to wish him good luck as Ireland boss, and he reckons his successor could not have had better preparation for his dream job.
So the back page of the Irish Star this morning, I've no axe to grind. Mick happy to pass on to Kenny and wishes new boss the best. This is Paul Lennon, who seems to have spoken with Mick, or certainly Mick's people. Kenny's now the Ireland boss with his 450 grand annual salary kicking in well ahead of the original planned start date of August the 1st. It's not a surprise, and I'm not disappointed with the decision, although I'm disappointed that I can't finish what I started. This is what he was saying last week. And then they have Robbie talks go on. This is Paul Lennon's story as well. Keane's wife Claudine tweeted yesterday that the FAI must show legendary Ireland coach the respect he deserves. But while the association is keen to accommodate the country's most capped player and leading marksman, it won't impose the 39-year-old on Kenny. So it's, they also talk about what Gary Owens was saying to us yesterday. And James McLean claims the British government should stop. I can't just read that there. And talking about giving out to footballers. It's ridiculous. You've got Matt Hancock saying we should take a pay cut. No one seems to like footballers. We've got livelihoods too. People might take this the wrong way, but we do work hard for our money, he says. So, as ever, James McLean happy to put his head above the parapet and talk about that. So, the ongoing stuff about pay cuts and the PFA versus the Premier League versus English football versus English society, that's a story that we're going to come back to in the coming days when everybody gets a chance to digest the news that we have a new Ireland manager.
The Irish Daily Mail this morning is Robbie sidelined. That's the main headline. Doubt hangs over Ireland legend Keane's part in FAI setup, and bosses agree to a wage drop. So this is Premier League managers are siding with clubs in the battle over wages, with the majority ready to accept a temporary cut. And in the Irish Daily Mail this morning as well, they're also revealing their Football All-Stars dream team.
The back page of the Mirror this morning. New Ireland boss Stephen offers hope amidst the darkness of lockdown. King Kenny FAI succession plan brought forward. This is Paul O'Hare's story there. And they also have a story about revolt. Premier League players are in full-scale revolt over proposals to bring in drastic pay cuts. They've set up a captain's WhatsApp group, and all 20 are being urged to stand strong together, reject the plans and not break rank after one club skipper branded the proposals disgusting. So that is an interesting story, which is going to bubble away over the next couple of days and weeks as well. So that's the back page of the Mirror.
The Daily Telegraph this morning leads with a photograph of the gates outside Anfield. Not the spirit of Shankly. Supporters group wants to know why Liverpool have furloughed workers. Gordon Taylor then says clubs must reveal cash crisis. PFA chief says players will lose trust about wage cuts. So basically, Taylor wants to see the players get full disclosure on where the finances are going should their wages be cut. FA could furlough staff meanwhile in bid to mitigate £100 million shutdown loss. And National draws 5 million viewers and raises £2.6 million.
The Guardian this morning is a picture of Shane Lowry. I'm not happy to live off one open title. Shane Lowry on Portrush triumph and life in the shadow of McIlroy. So it's an interview with Shane Lowry leading the back page of the Guardian this morning. And better to play behind closed doors than not at all, says UEFA. So we had Jonathan Walters on the show on Friday, and he was saying that you can't play without fans. The whole point about playing is to bring fans together, and the only reason that you will be playing these games behind closed doors is for money. And I totally understand that viewpoint. I do also understand the viewpoint of trying to get the industry back on some kind of beginning of a footing. Because ultimately there won't be, if the TV deals collapse and the clubs have to pay back the broadcasters or are in debt to the broadcasters, then the players won't benefit. The fans ultimately don't benefit either. It's not an ideal scenario at all. And I wonder, is there kind of a halfway house where some deal can be worked out? And then they also have Premier League clubs may go it alone and pay cut talks. So again, that story's going to rumble on.
Just very briefly before we get into the last newspaper, has the events of the weekend and the last couple of weeks not shown that entrusting Premier League footballs to be quarantined within a World Cup style camp to allow this thing to happen is actually a ludicrous idea? The actions of Jack Grealish, Kyle Walker breaking rules despite actually kind of preaching the opposite in Kyle Walker's case. It's perhaps a more difficult task than we thought to actually get Premier League footballers to do what they're told and pay or play for the pay that they're getting, hundreds of thousands a week, and actually allow this thing to go ahead and make sure that the TV money comes in, the thing that pays their wages. But we'll see. The Irish News is where I'm going to conclude. O'Hagan says county football probably a no-go in 2020. This is down captain Darren O'Hagan. Says the GAA will always be there no matter what happens this year, but the talk of social distancing measures being extended means he doesn't see much inter-county football being played at all this year. You've got the picture there of Big McCarthy handing over the reins. Stephen Kenny would lead the Republic of Ireland into the Euro 2020 qualifier, and McKenna says consistency, the missing ingredient for United. This is Kieran McKenna, United's first team coach.
Okay, that is the papers for now. It is 8:34 this morning. I'm going to talk with Richie Towell, going to talk with Stephen Hunt, going to bring you Mayo's Mount Rushmore. If you've got thoughts on all that, 087 918 180 is the WhatsApp number. Pardon me, or you can always tweet the show at Off the Ball. We are going to talk about Ireland. Obviously, we're going to be. Let's have a listen back here to Brian Kerr on Saturday's OTB. Has he any advice for Stephen Kenny?
In 2003, you took over the Republic of Ireland national team. What is your advice now to Stephen Kenny regarding getting to know the senior players in the first team and what he needs to do to assimilate himself quickly with the Republic of Ireland?
Well, I don't think Stephen needs huge advice from me. He's his own man. I know Stephen quite well. I signed him as a player going back many years ago. And over the years, we've stayed in touch a bit for various reasons. But he doesn't need a lot of advice from me. He's had great success at the levels he's worked at. And players who played for him respect him very, very highly. But look, I think he'd be doing sensible and practical things over the next while. He'd be making contact with the players who are in the squad currently, who have been playing regularly in mixed team. And he will be having conversations, I'd imagine, with them in relation to assuring them that he likes what they've done, but he still will need time to make his own mind up. But I'm sure he'd be having a conversation. He'd be also putting staff together. That'd be a very important one. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Nathan referred to the possibility of his staff being enlarged. I wouldn't be surprised at that, or the addition of one or two people to the staff, I would think.
Right, so that was Brian Kerr literally reacting to the breaking news as it broke here on Off the Ball on Saturday afternoon with John Duggan and Nathan Murphy. And obviously that we was fairly deals fell into place so quickly that
just going to hop in there just while we fix Gerard's line, and while we are fixing that, I'm going to run through what's on offtheball.com and make sure to hop on in there. If you're just joining us, by the way, this morning, we've got a good show coming up. We've got the Mount Rushmore of Mayo sports people coming your way this morning. It is our lead story on Off the Ball today with a picture of Ciara McDonald's there, the 32 Mount Rushmores, episode 1, Mayo's Greatest Sports People. Your judge this morning will be one Nathan Murphy. He will be with us later on to go through his Mount Rushmore. So obviously he's going to be picking his top 4 Mayo sports people. I had to correct myself there to not say Mayo footballers, because it could be 4 footballers, 4 Gaelic footballers, the likes of Ciara McDonald has been mentioned. Ronan Mullen of Off the Ball last night asked if we could actually just have 4 Ciara McDonalds on the Mount Rushmore, which may not be the worst shout. But then what about the likes of Liam McHale? What about Cora Staunton? What about in a different code entirely, Kevin Kilban? So I'm going to be interested to get Nathan Murphy's take on all of that, because most people would argue that perhaps the greatest era of success in Mayo sport occurred before Nathan Murphy was even born, when you go back to the 1950s, for example, in GAA. So we'll see if he's a man of history or if he's a man of actually colour television. Elsewhere on offtheball.com, you've got Neymar training with dogs during COVID-19. Absolutely worth your time to check that out. Nigel Benn's brother, NFL legend, both pass away after COVID-19 diagnosis. Gary Breen wants the expectations for Stephen Kenny to be lowered. And like a gorilla with a machine gun, Sunderland till I die, episode 3 review. Jerry, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah, sorry, I don't know which point you actually lost me there, but I am back. We were talking about the situation with regards to Brian Kerr and him coming after. I just wanted to, I don't know if everybody remembers, but when Brian Kerr arrived, it was like the return of the king in The Lord of the Rings. It's like this coronation of somebody who was an Irish football man to the core, who had the same reputation that he has now, where he was a man of the people and like so invested in the Irish football scene that it was like it was a joyous outpouring for people involved in grassroots football in Ireland. And ultimately the national team was supposed to be some kind of representation of exactly that, what the country stands for. But it didn't work out, right? So if there are lessons to learn, if Stephen Kenny has some time to sit down and have a coffee with Brian Kerr and they analyse coldly and rationally what happened, then that would not be the worst thing. That would not be the worst idea or a conversation to happen, because you just want every available opportunity for this to succeed to be taken. And look, Stephen Kenny's a very smart man, so he'll have seen that and gone, okay, I don't know if there was anything specific that Brian Kerr did or didn't do that will allow him to change. Obviously, they're different men, different styles of football, that kind of stuff, so we'll see. But it was just a cautionary note from history that even though there's going to be an outpouring of joy from grassroots fans and people from the League of Ireland, that's important now. But when the first match kicks off and that whistle blows, it doesn't actually matter a jot.
Yeah, like it's something that's been spoken about quite a bit ever since December 2018 when Stephen Kenny was appointed down the line. This idea of, will the dressing room be behind a character like Stephen Kenny, not a character like Stephen Kenny, a person with the profile of Stephen Kenny, which internationally isn't as large as Nick McCarthy, certainly not as large as the likes of Martin O'Neill or Giovanni Trapattoni. Would there be that respect? I personally think that there will be no issue there. But for anybody who might have concerns about that, look at his backroom team. Look at Keith Andrews. Look at Damien Duff. Damien Duff is in your backroom team. If there is not the respect from the players for that management team, then there is something wrong in the playing group. So I think that that's actually quite an important thing to point out here for anybody who had those fears. I think that those couple of appointments in the backroom team should actually eradicate that. And I don't know, maybe that's kind of one of the reasons why Robbie Keane could potentially be an asset within a couple of teams in the FAI. It is still the profile that he has, which doesn't count for nothing. Of course, you want somebody who's a good coach, and as Damien Delaney said yesterday, forget everything else. If you're a good coach, that's all that matters. But maybe at the start, maybe there is a bit of an allure to having somebody with the profile of somebody like Robbie Keane. But anyway, in the current senior management setup that we know exists, someone like Damien Duff and Keith Andrews certainly play a pivotal role on that front.
Yeah, look, I think that there's enough football nous in the room for them to have any conversation with anybody in that team and in that squad. Like, who in that team and that squad has a career that's going to look down on anybody involved in the management team? None of them do. Like, we're not talking about the team that Jack Charlton took over, which had multiple European Cup winners in it. Like, it's not that team, and it's not even the team that Mick McCarthy took over. Obviously that team ended up having players who were multiple European Cup winners eventually. Like, there's no reason for any of those players to go, oh, you've come from the League of Ireland, I can't take you seriously. Like, there just isn't. And also, as you said, the backroom team were so experienced and so well thought of that they'll be able to have any conversation with anybody. You would hope as well that a bunch of young players come into the team relatively quickly. McDonald was saying that he expects Adam Ida to be the type of number 9 that Stephen Kenny has always enjoyed having in his side, and so he could be in straight away. That there's room for Malumbi in midfield to get into that team fairly quickly as well. So a lot of reasons to be excited.
Definitely. And like with the Nations League coming up around this, there is good opportunity to actually blood a few of those youngsters. It's whether or not they actually get the opportunity. Like if you do have a few of those Nations League games before the Slovakia game, it's just perfect on that front as well, given that there is a handful of young players we want to see get their opportunity, and they automatically have this connection with getting their opportunity now because it is their former underage boss who will be bringing them into the team. So there will be more of an expectancy that they will come in, and having a couple of Nations League games before that Slovakia game would be perfect. And I think someone like Jason Malumbi, who's been spoken about so highly, is the ideal sort of person and the ideal sort of character, like former under-21 captain. He has the leadership qualities. He has the maturity at a young age to be able to slot right into a senior setup. We've seen with his performances at Millwall already that he has the talents to do it as well. He's absolutely ready to make a mark in some aspect of an Ireland senior squad at this point, and he suspects it's going to be on the pitch sooner rather than later. So there's tons of excitement here. But with the excitement that comes with a swathe of youngsters, there also has to be a bit of patience. And how much patience there is going to be is the question. Is it a situation where we will accept defeat against Slovakia or accept not qualifying as long as we see good progress in the Nations League, perhaps promotion or who knows, promotion might be a bit of a leap. But if we're seeing strides forward and new players coming through, and then we're in a very, very good position going into the World Cup qualifiers, is everybody then just going to press pause and be like, that's okay, that's a decent start?
All right, let's get the views of Stephen Hunt, who joins us this morning. Stephen, I hope you're well. How are you getting on?
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. It's good to have some proper sports news to talk about. I'm not going to lie. This is a proper big story. A new Ireland manager. What did you make of how this whole thing unfolded?
Yeah, listen, if you look at it and you take all the emotion out of the decision, you can see why the FAI have acted the way they have. I think Mick would have been extremely disappointed for sure in terms of what's happened, but knowing Mick and the way he is, he would have been disappointed, to say the least. I think he would have been keen to finish the job, but from a business point of view, which the new guys in charge have acted probably very decisive in their decisions and probably have made the right decision for the good of football in Ireland as well, and the good for Stephen Kenny for sure.
Let's talk about Mick. Let's talk about Mick first, because obviously this is his second stint in charge, and it hasn't ended the way he would have wanted it. Obviously, if he qualified for the tournament and was handing over the reins to a team that was already qualified, like Herida did in Denmark, for example, then that would have been the perfect send-off for him. The campaign was a bit meh in the end. 3 wins, 2 against Gibraltar, 1 against Georgia. Not a very difficult group when you look back on it. The Danes didn't play up to their own standards. So what is his legacy from this campaign going to be, Stephen? How do we sum it up? Was it a success or was it kind of in the middle?
I think Mick goes back a long way with Ireland. When I joined Wolves, whatever it was now, could be 10, 11 years ago, I quickly found out Mick wants to be manager again from there. So it wasn't just this campaign for Mick. It was about getting back into that job that he obviously had some fond memories of, and obviously some scar tissue. So for Mick, getting back into the job wasn't just about coming back and doing really well in a whole. It was about a lot more, to be honest with you. And when you look at the campaign as a whole, I think it was stop-start. But when Mick took over, there was a connection lost with the manager and the media. So the atmosphere within the group could never come across to the fans. I think Mick has brought a connection back with the fans where it was needed, and then he got the game rolling, got the ball rolling, was going into the playoffs on the back of a good performance and with confidence, but at the same time, I've been disappointed not to qualify for sure. But I think overall, Mick will leave this job and look at it as a success. The fans have reunited with the whole buy into the fact that they needed to be connected again, for sure. But now you're looking at it going into the playoffs. If we had Mick in charge, if he won, he'd have been in a right good place. But now, obviously, he's not, and Stephen takes over with a difficult start, in my opinion. But it's going to be interesting with the 2 new guys as the backroom staff as well. Having known them, it's going to be exciting. Hello.
Yeah, you're still there. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Stephen, just on that, the excitement that comes from the backroom team, what is it in particular about them? What do you think the 2 lads will actually bring as a backup to Stephen Kenny in terms of Keith Andrews and in terms of Damien Duff? Because I think because of the roles that they've held so far, our knowledge on the 2 lads as coaches so far in their career almost comes from what we hear said about the lads and almost the hearsay about the lads. From knowing them, what is their philosophy? How does it fall in line with what Stephen Kenny will bring?
I I suppose I was nearly about to retire, and I trained with MK Dons, and I seen Keith Andrews as a coach. He's very efficient, very well able to dominate the players and get what he wanted from them in terms of a nice, strong view. Duffers has obviously turned into a bit of a fanatic. I've done my UEFA B course with him. You could tell he's a deep thinker and wants to do things 100%. So you hear things coming out of Shamrock Rovers when he was there with the young boys. No matter what level you train, you have to train with enthusiasm for the players, and he certainly did that. So the enthusiasm them two boys have. But if you look at the whole setup and take a back seat and look at it and you go, right, Damien Duff, really good character, really good person, really reliable. Keith Andrews, really good person, really strong-minded, as you can tell from his views on Sky, and a really good coach. And then, first and foremost, both of them are really good human beings. So not only has he got strong characters, he's got good people as well. I think that goes down to Jim Crawford and then John O'Shea as well within the camp, that they are all on the journey of being coaches and managers and all real strong characters. But again, I go back to the really good people and really good to be around. So if I was the players, I'd be excited by the guys coming in with Stephen as well, for sure.
Can I ask you about John O'Shea, actually? Because I hadn't heard the notion of him being floated as somebody who is in the extended backroom team, or getting involved with the under-21s. But it's a brilliant decision. And like I was saying, that kind of John O'Shea had an absolutely remarkable career, and as you say, seems like a really good person. So, I wasn't sure that he was going to get involved in management, because he was so successful that he could easily have just put his feet up and retired and done whatever he wanted to do with his life. But he's made the decision to get involved and to roll his sleeves up and to go in at a club level where it's not an easy job. It's like every day you're trying to make a group of players better to sustain themselves in a division or to try and achieve something. So what's he going to bring to the under-21 setup, and what kind of future do you envisage for him in his career? Is he management material ultimately? Is that where this is going for him?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt John O'Shea will be manager one day. He's just started his journey now. He started coaching this year at Reading, so he's had 5-6 months at Reading. He's a little bit behind the two guys in terms of coach for a while, and is still on the learning train. He's literally, I've known John since he's 12. He doesn't take anything for a chance. He does his homework, he does his work, he studies hard. I say study, football is sometimes about learning the ropes, seeing what mistakes people make, what they gain from their experience, and they do good. And I'm sure John will go into the 21 setup wanting to do well with the teams, wanting to win first and foremost, and then it helps everyone both ways. John's getting a look at young players to see what's up and coming, like Keith Andrews has done with the 21s now, and got a feel for their characters, got a feel for how they play. Would have been looking to take the next step into first team coaching anyway, if it wasn't with Ireland, I'm sure. And Keith has obviously gone in with Stephen. Stephen liked him. So going back to John, he's PR perfect to be a manager. He relates to the fans. He gets them. He gets what they're feeling, and obviously he's a deep thinker of the game. So one day he will be manager for sure. It could possibly be the senior international team. I'm not too sure what they're thinking, but one day he'll look to manage Ireland, whether it's 10 years time, 20 years time. But he'll definitely go on and be a manager somewhere.
So we've got John O'Shea, we've got Damien Duff, we've got Keith Andrews, a couple of experienced former Irish internationals there, to say the very least. Then you've got Robbie Keane, Stephen. Where does Robbie Keane end up in all of this? If you're running the FAI, is there a role that you create for him? Is it simply paying off his contract and going forward with the management teams that Stephen Kennedy and Jim Crawford wants?
Whatever was signed for.
Just having a bit of trouble with your line there, Stephen. So we might see if we can give Stephen a quick call back on that. But good question, Owen. Good question. Where does Robbie Keane fit into all this?
It's there is obviously a wealth of experience already there, and I think it has been one of the criticisms, hasn't it, of the FAI, at least in previous years, that there isn't enough of past experience being called upon, that there isn't enough of, because as you say, like you talk about the Jack Charlton era, great European Cup winners, etc., etc. But the Mick McCarthy era was similar, like not obviously quite at that level, but just one rung below it in terms of the quality we've had around. And obviously we've had Roy Keane brought into the setup before that didn't quite work out. I think perhaps on the management level that isn't going to work out for him generally. Stephen, I know you're back with us, and I was just making that point there that the FAI have clearly moved to perhaps address in recent years the fact that former Irish internationals and successful club players, for example, and successful Irish internationals perhaps weren't being given a fair crack at the whip when it came to gigs in the FAI. Robbie Keane obviously had been given his gig a couple of years ago, is still on a contract. What do you now do with Robbie Keane and that contract?
Yeah, well, as I said before I got cut off, I think Robbie would have had a conversation with the FAI when he took over on what role he would have been. I'm not 100% sure Stephen Kenny would have known about it. So until they come upon that he'd signed a 4-year deal, listen, Robbie can certainly be an ambassador for the FAI going forward. Does he want to be involved in the coaching? Only Robbie knows that. He's got a job in Middlesbrough that has obviously got off to a dodgy start, to say the least, and they've had to pick themselves up and deal with an awful lot there. But again, he'll be learning from that, I suppose, and he'll want to learn from the not winning games is tough when you start off as a coach and a manager. So, and especially a young manager in Woodgate. So I'm sure they're both learning as they go along. He's picked Robbie because he believes in Robbie as a coach and as a person, and he'll look to develop as a coach, I'd imagine, somewhere, but obviously not with the Irish setup in the senior setup, and maybe Robbie doesn't want to go down younger either. I'm not too sure. Robbie's the best person to ask on that for sure. I don't think it's an ideal situation, if I'm honest with you, but it's happened. It happened 2 years ago, and the guys that have taken over the reign have had to deal with it. So, and as you said, as I said, they dealt with it decisive in every decision so far. So you go with that.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's interesting that you refer to him as a developing coach there, and that's obviously what he is at the moment. We almost need to be careful of developing coaches, I'd imagine, in Ireland. The FAI don't want to burn this bridge with Robbie Keane. Like, what if he goes and develops and turns out he's a fantastic coach? Like, this is a situation that obviously Stephen Kenny has his team, and that's perfect, and that's the way it should be for the senior international manager. But then there is an employee here who is a legend of the Irish game, who we surely don't want to annoy too much.
No, well, I think Robbie is bright enough to realise that sometimes football is a business and decisions are made. Stephen Kenny had a decision to make that he wanted to have on his coaching staff, and he needed to be right for him. He hasn't got that long of a contract to be able to carry a coach if he doesn't want to coach. So Stephen has made that decision in terms of he's going to have Damien and Keith with him. I think that's got to be respected as well. It's a big decision. It's a strong decision, and Stephen wants to do it his way, which is fair enough, especially when you don't get that many opportunities to manage a country.
You talked about Damien Duff and him going and working with the younger players at Shamrock Rovers, and that was a springboard for him to get to Celtic. And obviously, you know, he clearly wants to go down that path. And you look at what Keith Andrews did. He worked with the younger players at Ireland and kind of came up through the age grade there, so that when he got to the under-21s, he actually knew those players for a number of years and could have conversations with them. If you were advising Robbie Keane at this stage about, you know, plotting a course to get to a point where you have the experience of international football. Now, obviously, he's been with Mick for that period of time that he's been with Mick in the backroom team there. But would it be a good idea if you were advising him? Would you give him the advice to go and work with one of the other younger underage teams, so that you know exactly what the talent pool is coming through?
No, every person is different. If I had to go into management as in coaching, I wouldn't want to have coached young players. That would have been as in like 15, 16-year-old. I think Damien did it at Rovers, but Keith Andrews did a year with MK Don's first team in the championship before he started doing his Sky. So he was always looking to get into it, even when he was doing his media work. I think Robbie will know which way he wants to go and how he wants to do it. And you learn from your mistakes sometimes as you go along, for sure. Nobody can see how to be a manager, how to be a coach. You go along with it, you do as best you can, prepare as best you can to be that, and then after that you rely on a little bit of luck and go from there. But Robbie will know what he wants to do. He's already coaching at a championship team, and trust me, if you're on the coach's ladder and you get a job like that, you are delighted to get it. So he's up and running as a coach. His Ireland setup was definitely a bonus for allowing himself to gain more experience under Mick and TC. But I've known Mick and TC a long time, and they both come together. And TC is Mick's coach, and it'd be very difficult to see anybody else having a big impact. So Robbie would have learned a lot, even from the 18 months he's had with Ireland, for sure.
Stephen, just on a final note, I think we just need to kind of appreciate that this is very much a new era for Irish football. I don't think anything kind of feels like a new era given everything that's happening in the world at the moment. But like, does that bring excitement for you? Are you hopeful for the future?
Yes, I've seen a lot of underage football the last couple of years myself, probably more than the three coaches put together that are there at the moment in terms of watching games. So I've seen a lot of the players' talents. I've seen young players develop from under 18s to under 21s and go on and not be frightened. And I can see another one or two players developing to get into Stephen Kenny's team. It just won't be a case of Stephen's going to roll out all of these 21s into the senior setup. That's just not going to happen. And you have to be playing English football at a decent level to allow yourself to be in with a chance of playing for Ireland. He might have one or two that could come in and play that are not involved. An example, if Troy Parrott is not playing regularly, he could have him in the squad. But it won't be a case of there be 5, 6, 7 players just roll up and get into the team. That won't happen. And even though they'll all be excited by Stephen Kenny getting the job, because they'll have all had good experiences with him and go for that. Just touching on Stephen, what I did see with Stephen was from Dundalk, he had a pattern of play to 21s for Ireland, and you could see similarities with extra different bits and pieces. To enable yourself to do that, you have to be a good coach, because every manager wants a style of play that they are renowned for. And with Stephen, I've seen definitely glimpses, if not 50-60% of the way Dundalk played, Ireland the 21s played, with extra bits then to adjust to the teams you're playing against. And again, that will have to be a case when you go up the ladder to international football. You will be able to bring your own pattern, but you'll have to adjust to better teams closing down, better teams streetwise to the whole situation. So Stephen's got his hands full, but it's definitely an exciting time with young players coming through and a new manager at the head.
You can see why the benefits of actually having worked with the under-21s, because everybody's like, oh, this isn't going to be like club football. He's not going to have loads of time with the players. He's not going to be able to get them to play like Dundalk were playing. But Stephen Kenny now has the experience of making the under-21s try and play a style of play with only a limited amount of coaching sessions with them, which I think is actually, in the long run, we're going to look back at this and go, well, that was the right way to see if you could get a manager into the international setup from the way that Stephen Kenny's career was going, and maybe Jim Crawford is our next manager in waiting. We're getting ahead of ourselves there, but like there's a style and a system of bringing players through, and that makes a lot of sense. Just you talked about watching so much underage football. Can you name us some names about players that you are excited, who are bubbling up, who might be a part of the first 18 months of Stephen Kenny's career as manager? Everybody's talking about Malumbi. Could he go straight in the team?
I think with Jason, you can tell by his style of play. I don't like individuals calling out names. So I think if a career has a pathway, and sometimes you get injured, sometimes you have to pick yourself up from that. But with Jason, he's played championship football this year, and literally, I know he's from my neck of the woods, but he's literally a right keen double in terms of he doesn't really give a sugar who you are, what you do. He's just there to play, and after that, I'm sure Jason is respectful and a professional. But when he goes on that pitch, I don't think, let's just say, the best centre midfielder comes to play. I don't think Jason will be intimidated by him. I think he's going to play his game and run all over him to a certain degree, because that's what he is. He's an athlete. He's a closer down, and he can get on the ball and he can play. So Malumbi's definitely got a bright future. But again, he might go back to Brighton, might not play, get in the regularity of playing men's football, which he has done this year, and take a backward step. So a lot of players will have a transition this year, I think, of Premier League football championship to maybe a week or two off to back into it straight away again. So you're not going to get much time to turn around the season in terms of mentality. Hopefully players will go in with a good rhythm and ready to go again straight away.
All right. Well, look, Stephen, we'll leave it there. You've been very good with your time this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
All the best. Stay safe.
It's Stephen Hunt giving us some immediate reaction. It's obviously not immediate, it happened on Saturday, but giving us some reaction this morning to the end of the Mick McCarthy era. If you want to get in touch with us, 087 9 180 180 is the number Mick's never been a great manager for Ireland, said one of our texters. We'll get more into that in just a minute. What are we? 3 minutes past 9 this morning here. Thanks very much for joining us on OTB AM, Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Plenty still to come in the next hour. We're going to chat with Richie Towell. There's the lockdown, lowdown, and Nathan Murphy joins us as we launch our search for Mayo's Mount Rushmore. First, just a quick reminder that the OTB YouTube channel and all of our podcast streams on the OTB Podcast Network are completely free to subscribe to. Just go and click the button, and they're jam-packed with quality content. On our YouTube channel and throughout our podcast stream for the last few days alone, Sunday Paper Review, Brian Kerr, Damien Delaney, Kenny Cunningham, Gary Breen, Dan McDonnell on Irish football, Jonathan Walters on how footballers are being used by the UK government to distract. Brilliant Friday Night Racing interview with, it was actually Saturday, with Mick Fitzgerald's a look back on his career with John Duggan. You can also find a playlist of each of our 12 episodes of the Classic Game Club so far. That and so much more. Subscribe to the OTB AM podcast stream wherever you get yours. We'll timestamp it for you so you can scroll through to whatever you want. Right, let's listen to Stephen Kenny here speaking to FAI TV about being appointed as manager of the football team.
It's a day of great pride for you and your family, but such are the times that we're living in right now. It must be very difficult to celebrate a moment like this.
No, we're not. We're certainly, it is a good day, but it's certainly, we're not in celebratory mode. I feel, our thoughts are with the frontline workers, really. The doctors, nurses, the paramedics, everyone really. The self-sacrifice is heroic, and we really support them.
Now, the new era is starting today in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the disruption that has brought to football. But it's meant that Mick McCarthy has vacated his position a couple of months ahead of schedule.
Yes, I mean, Mick's obviously had a tremendous career as captain of Ireland and as manager of Ireland on 2 occasions. And, he leaves a legacy behind him, and certainly... it's just unfortunate, with the cancellation of the matches. It's been an unfortunate situation, but he's revered in Ireland, and the contributions over the last couple of years of Robbie Keane and Terry Connor also, and all of the staff.
Football, of course, Stephen, is on hold at the moment, but we hope to be back playing sooner rather than later. And what a prospect you have ahead with the year ahead of you.
Yeah, I feel it's an incredible year, really unprecedented. You've got the Euro playoff against Slovakia, of course, and we've got the Nations League, 6 games in the Nations League, and also World Cup qualifiers this year. So that's never happened before, where you've got Euro playoffs, Nations League, and World Cup qualifiers in the same calendar year. 9 games between September and November. An incredible schedule, and very, very exciting. Very, very exciting year, and we've a lot to look forward to.
And confirmation today that Keith Andrews, Damien Duff and Alan Kelly are going to be working with you with the senior team. You must be delighted with their appointments.
Yeah, Keith has been coaching the Ireland under 16s, 17s and 18s and coached with the under 21s for me this year. We had a great rapport, really, and very forthright, and I welcome that. And I think that's, he's done very well. Damien was with the Ireland under 15s, Damien Duff, and did very well, and has been at Shamrock Rovers, and reports are with Celtic's first team this season that he's been excellent there all year, and very, very high work ethic, and a big addition to the coaching team. Alan Kelly has a wealth of experience and a very analytical goalkeeping coach, so we're delighted to have him.
And of course, you're leaving the under-21 team in safe hands now, with Jim Crawford stepping up as manager and John O'Shea coming in as his number 2.
Yeah, Jim Crawford, was Ireland under-18 manager, and then he came in last year with the under-21s, and he's made a great contribution really over the campaign. We're winning the group at the moment. We've 3 games left, and in the group. And so to try and qualify for the under-21 European Championships, that has now been put back a year, of course. And John O'Shea alongside him, a lot of experience working with Reading. And so I'm sure they'll look forward to that challenge as well.
Now, Stephen, there's a huge amount of positivity out there on your appointment. What's your message to the Ireland fans today?
Well, I think, at the moment, we've got to really stay safe, and I think, we've got to look after each other. And there's a lot of, it's a lot of tragedy throughout Europe, and in Ireland, people have been very, very disciplined throughout the country, and hopefully we get the benefits from that. A lot of people have lost their lives, of course, and our thoughts are with them. And the Irish fans, there are better days ahead. We feel there are better days ahead, and we can look forward in a sporting context to what is a magnificent year of football in the Aviva Stadium over the forthcoming year.
I don't know if everybody had already heard that. That's Stephen Kenny speaking with FAI TV after his appointment was confirmed, and it was no perfect. It's a very difficult time for the country and for everybody with what's going on, and yet at the same time, it must be a very proud moment for him and for his family and for the wider grassroots community of Irish football. And I thought he struck exactly the right note there, which just kind of goes to speak about who Stephen Kenny is as a man. And I'm delighted our next guest is with us now to talk to us a bit about this. Richie Towell, you're very welcome to the show this morning here on OTB AM. How are you getting on?
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, not too bad. I'm kind of just in the same boat as everyone else in the country and probably in the world at the moment. It's a difficult time for everybody, but it's a bit of a strange time as well. But it's for me, it's been nice as well. I've been able to spend a bit of time with my family and spend mornings with my two kids, and I have to get up and rush off to training and games and stuff like that. So sometimes you have to take the good out of the bad that's happening,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as I said there, Stephen Kenny fully understands exactly what's going on. These are very unusual circumstances, and that's why he has been named manager a couple of months before he was scheduled to be. You know him very well. He signed you for Dundalk. What is it that makes Stephen Kenny a manager who's ready for this gig right now, Richie?
He's an amazing manager, first of all, and he's an amazing man. He is, He doesn't just think of the team. He thinks of everybody. Like a lot of managers always focus on their best 11 players, and that's it. With Stephen, it's a real team effort, and that's right through from the people who make the tea at the club. That's what he was like at Dundalk. He made everybody feel like they were part of the family, and I think he'll do that with Ireland as well. Obviously, it will be a bit harder because he only gets to have lads for a certain amount of time of the year because they're going to go back to their clubs. But when he does have them there, I know that all the lads will love going and playing for Ireland and love going and playing for him.
One of the things that there was a conversation yesterday about what impact he might have immediately. Damien Delaney was talking about he's going to give the players confidence when they take the field, that there's a style of play, that there's a pattern that they're trying to get to, and that they're capable of doing that. There's no limit on their potential. Can you talk to us a bit about that? Because that's kind of that's how we would characterise watching his Dundalk team play. And even the under 21s, when they went, again, Damien Delaney made the point, they went out playing Italy. They weren't going, oh, geez, we'd be lucky to get a draw here. They're like, we're going to get the ball and we're going to keep the ball because we're talented footballers. How does he do that? How does he get players feeling confident that the right thing to do is to want possession, to try and get possession, to try and keep the ball and try and be on the ball all the time?
Yeah, he just drilled that into us. He did. Literally from the moment that we met up, he just kept on at us. I mean, every time we went down onto the pitch, I don't know how, I can't speak on other lads' behalf really, but I always felt like I was the best player going out onto the pitch. I always felt like I wanted the ball. I always wanted to be the one to take free kicks, take penalties. I always wanted to be on the ball. I always wanted to create chances, to take shots. He never ever put the shackles on it and said, no, you must do this and you must do that. He said, if you get into the final third, you do what you want to do. If you want to have a shot, you want to dribble, you want to commit defenders, and that's the freedom that he gives you. And as I said, just his team talks are so inspirational. Yeah, every game you go out, you believe you can win. You never, even if you're playing in Europe and you know that the team has got bigger budgets and better players on paper, going out to the game, you always felt we can win this and we can win this comfortably. I never thought, we'll just try and stay in the game and And for the last few minutes, he was just like, I remember we went over to play Pate Borisov away from home, who had great pedigree at the time, and we were massive underdogs. And he just said, no, we're going there to win, and we're going there to keep the ball. And as soon as we went out on the pitch, after 5-10 minutes, we realised, right, we're actually just as good as they is. And I'll never forget that game over there. I think we got a draw, or they maybe narrowly beat us, but we absolutely battered them off the park with it. And when we came in, he said, I told you, like, I knew we were capable of doing it, but now you need to believe in it. And I think that's what he'll bring to the Irish side, you know. I think the last few Ireland teams have always been like, all right, we'll see how the game goes, and then we'll try and get them in the last few minutes, where I know with Stephen and especially with his under 21 team, it's the exact same. They'll just go for the jugular straight away. They'll go to win the game, and they'll go to keep the ball, and they'll go to have high intensity in their pressing. And when they get the ball, they want to keep it and create a lot of chances, which is what every fan wants to see when they watch football.
Yeah, like it sounds as if we're going to see a bit of a difference in terms of attitude as much as anything else. Like, I don't want to be too harsh on Mick McCarthy, and perhaps this is more of a criticism of Martin O'Neill here, but we have seen in the past, Richie, that Irish players have been talked down a little bit, I think it's fair to say, whereas this seems it'll be the opposite, that we want to talk about how Stephen Kenny will play football and what his on-pitch philosophy will be, but actually probably the most important thing is what he's going to communicate to the players and the belief he will give to the players when they put on the green jersey.
Yeah, he'll install that in them straight away. Obviously, I was never part of it under the previous two managers, so I can't speak to how players felt then or what their message was given to the players, because I don't know. But all I know is that I know that with Stephen, he will install in them that they are going to be the best players on the pitch. They are going to be the better team, and he's going to install how they're going to play. Obviously, it's going to take time. It takes time with everything. Even, I think, with us with Dundalk, it happened rapidly. It did, because the group that he got together was amazing, and to be fair, the group that he got together there were people that nobody else wanted, you know. So he got us together, and we just wanted to learn. And I hope that the players, the Warren players, I hope that they do the same. I hope they buy into what he says, and I hope that they listen to him, because if they do, he will definitely steer them in the right direction.
Are you hopeful that they'll buy in, Richie?
Sorry?
Are you expecting them to fully buy in? Like, I think that's been it's been a little bit of a worry. Like, I think really when you look at his under-21 management, and like anybody who has any knowledge of football knows that there is no reason to have any concerns about Stephen Kenny in terms of getting the respect from the dressing room. But stranger things have happened. Is that a concern for you at all, that he doesn't actually claim the respect of the entire dressing room immediately?
Yeah, I think he'll get the respect straight away. And not just because of what he's already done in football, because of the person that he is. Stephen, he's a great man, he is. He's a real family man. I know that his wife and his daughters and his sons used to go and watch all the games, and he was very interested in other players' families as well. You know, he used to always ask how they were getting on. He used to, as soon as I had my two kids, he was on to me asking, saying congratulations and asking how they were and how my partner was. So, but that's the way Stephen is. He really looks after his players, and he wants to know how their family life is, and I think that's the sort of person he is. So I know a lot of the lads that's in the Ireland squad, they all have families and kids and stuff like that. So I think they'll have a mutual respect in that sense, and I just know that as soon as they walk with Stephen, that straight away they'll realise the person that he is and the coach that he is as well, you know. And then obviously when it comes around to the games, they'll soon realise that they believe that he'll be able to instill in them, and hopefully they can go and do great things.
Right,
and surrounded himself well on his background. Can I ask you, Richie, about team shape?
Sorry, I cut him off there a little bit.
I think Ger was just going to hop in and ask you about the team shape there.
Yeah, no worries,
Richie.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry, Ger.
Yeah,
just in terms of,
yeah.
sorry, I think we've just got a bit of a delay on a couple of the lines here, Richie. Just in terms of the team shape, I think is what Ger was trying to get at there. What Stephen Kenny, like we've heard from you there brilliantly about how he's going to motivate the players, how he's going to communicate with the players. But what is he actually going to communicate to these Irish players? Do you think? What is the actual plan going to be, and how discernibly different will it be from Mick McCarthy?
I don't know what sort of tactics Stephen is going to do, because obviously it depends on personnel, doesn't it? I know at Dundalk he just wanted high energy, high pressing, attacking football. That's what he wanted there, and obviously we had the players there at the time to do it. We had the likes of Dal Horgan and Darren Meehan out wide with lots of pace. Chris Field, Ronan Finn, players like that in the middle of the park that could all get around, and obviously with me and Ronan Finn, we used to get forward a hell of a lot and chip in with goals. So I would imagine he would want his midfielders and his wingers chipping in and helping the strikers with the goals. So it would be great to see Ireland playing the type of football that we did at Dundalk, because I think everybody could see in the country that we used to play really attractive football. And we used to play fast, attacking. We used to take chances at the back, we used to play out. And I think that's what fans want to see, Fans don't really want to see cagey football anymore. They want to see the likes of the way Man City's and Liverpool's, and even see with the likes of Wolves and things like that. They keep the ball at the back, and then they have the two fullbacks that bomb on constantly, and that's what Stephen wants to do. I know with Dane Massey and Sean Gannon, he used to tell them to keep going forward. Even if one is going forward, the other one go forward as well. And that's the type of football we used to play at Dundalk, and it was great to be a part of, and I'm sure it was great for the fans to watch. So if it's something similar, I'm sure the players will love it, and then obviously if the players are loving it and enjoying the football, it will hopefully end up with good results, because ultimately that's how he's going to be judged. It's how results go. So as a fan, I hope that Ireland are winning. That's the main thing.
I guess the question then, and this is almost a defeatist Irish fan, this is me almost channeling my inner Martin O'Neill here asking this question, but do we have the players in the Republic of Ireland senior team to then enact that? Because with Dundalk, obviously a great bunch of players in the League of Ireland. We talk about Manchester City and Liverpool, two of the best squads in the Premier League. How will Stephen Kenny be able to do that against better international opposition?
Yeah, I think we have really good players playing for Ireland. We have, I think the majority of our players are playing the Premier League, and that's the likes of Seamus Coleman, Emma Stevens, Shane Duffy, Jeff Hendrick, Robbie Brady. You have a lot of good talent there. So I think with the good talent that we have, and how Stephen makes you feel, and how he's going to make them feel that they're the best players, I think it can only be a recipe for good things. And obviously time will tell that, but fingers crossed, all just clicks together.
Yeah, and that idea that you mentioned there of midfielders coming forward, chipping in with a lot more, I think that's something that Irish people have been looking for a while. We've mentioned Jason Malumbi's name on the show quite a bit this morning, and he's almost the instant personification of that, isn't he? The forward-running midfielder who's chipping in with a couple of goals, with a couple of attempts every game for Millwall. But he's also coming through Stephen Kenny's under-21 setup. It's almost as if his rise has aligned nicely with Stephen Kenny's rise, placing an added tactical importance on his attacking midfielders.
Yeah, Jason, I work with Jason at Brighton, and he is 100% going to play for Ireland. There's no doubt about it in my eyes. Jason is a top player, and he's a great person as well. Really hard working, and as a midfielder, he can do it all. He can head tackle, he can get around the park, he can drive the team forward. He's a real leader here. So I'm sure that Stephen has probably earmarked him as someone who can go into the team. I have no doubt that Jason is good enough to go and play for Ireland, and I think it'll be sooner rather than later that he will. But even going back to what you said there, I think his under-21 team, has a lot of really good players, and I think everybody knows what Stephen is like. He is no issue in putting young players in, and he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. You know, if they're good enough, that's all that counts. And his under 21 team was a really exciting team to watch, and I have no doubt that he will put a lot of them in.
A personal level, does having somebody like Stephen Kenny manage the senior national team have an impact on your own career ambitions? Is there like when you heard this news, did you think, yeah, look, you know, I'm playing for Salford City obviously at the moment, you've got some Premier League experience in terms of knowing exactly what the expectations are, and everybody involved in this Ireland setup has played throughout the different levels of football in England. Does it change your own frame of mind about how you think about what's coming next in your own career?
No, it never changes my mind, to be honest. I'm always a very driven person anyways, so I always just do what I need to do, you know. I don't get me wrong, I was over the moon when it was announced that Stephen got the job. I text him straight away and congratulated him. Because he's just that type of person. He's had probably, other than my parents and my family, he's had the biggest influence on my career over anyone else. I was probably going to stop playing football only for Stephen, so I owe him a lot, and he's probably made me the person that I am today by his work ethic and how he thinks. That's probably been instilled in me, and I'm a very driven person anyway. So for me, I just need to, first of all, get back playing, because nobody's playing football anymore, which is probably the most frustrating thing. You'll have a lot of time on a chance to go back over previous games, which will probably be a good thing for him, but I think it's frustrating time for everyone. So for me, first and foremost, I need to just get back playing. And obviously we're starting a good run together at Salford. They're a really good team now. Obviously, me and Darren Gibson were playing the last couple of games in midfield together after Gibbo signing. So, hopefully if everything gets up and running, Stephen once more will watch the game and we see how it goes. But I wouldn't be holding my breath on that, to be honest, because there's a lot of players playing at a higher level than me. Even you speak about the likes of Jason Malone, he's playing the championship weekend with Millwall, and he's flying. And you have other midfielders, Jeff Hendricks and like this, you know. So you never know. You never know.
Exactly.
I'd always be optimistic. I would.
Yeah, you're right to be, though. He obviously really rates you, Richie, and you've been great with your time this morning. I hope you stay well and hope you're ready for whenever the football kicks back in. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Cheers, thank you. Bye-bye.
Richie Towell giving us some thoughts there on what it was actually like to play for and under and with and be inspired by Stephen Kenny. Loads of great information in that about team talks, team shape, and him as a man and the kind of value system that Stephen Kenny has. As ever, if you want to get in touch this morning, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave us a comment on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/Off the Ball. We're live there. You can also drop us tweets at Off the Ball. It is time for our lockdown lowdown. We do this every morning, and our first one here is the story about Carl Freeman, who was inspired by somebody on the internet in Cheltenham and has gone, I would say, a step further. Last week we told you about this guy, his plans to run a marathon in his back garden while soloing a hurl. Well, he went and did it. He literally did it. His goal was to raise 20 grand for the Irish Cancer Society and the HSE staff, and this morning his GoFundMe has taken in over 50 grand. So this is a phenomenal achievement, and it's certainly making us all feel a little bit inadequate this morning, Owen. What's your plans for the afternoon?
It's not this, anyway. This is unbelievably impressive. This is obviously something that was done in the UK with a marathon runner, but Mayo stepped up to shame the UK and actually do a far better version of it. And they put a sliotar on her hurl there for the full marathon. So incredible stuff there, and absolutely fantastic idea as well. 50 grand already for charity. That is quite something.
Yeah, over 200 laps completed that you can see there from the B-roll. This is it was live on Mayo GA TV, so congratulations to everybody for putting that together. It is a phenomenal achievement, and it would make you feel like you need to be inspired and get up and do some stuff. Some people are doing some stuff.
They are. Here is Dublin GA launching the hurling hit a slitter over your house into a jug challenge. David Tracy has been showing off his skills.
And piss off your dad. That's the other part of this.
Yes, absolutely crucial. So we can see the video here from David Tracy. This is like obviously
the dad's reaction is the thing that makes this. And the bit that David Tracy, which you can't hear on the video there, is people are going to say this is fake. No one has any cynicism at this time. This is a time of coming together, national outpouring of solidarity, and I think that what he's done there is one of the most skillful things I've ever seen on or off a hurling field. Owen.
Absolutely, the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor 2021 will go to David Tracy's dad, I think.
Charlotte Regan. So everybody's WhatsApp group is aflame with bad videos, bad jokes, rubbish, essentially. Most of the wild speculation about the army storming the barricades and the streets and us all going into martial law, because the WhatsApps were copied from American groups. They've stopped. It's just now bad jokes and bad videos. Charlotte Regan, though, has said that don't send me another video via WhatsApp unless it's this good. So we had to steal this. This is absolutely sensational. It is a volleyball playing dog, this is legitimately amazing. The dog is really good at volleyball. Certainly, I don't know if you played volleyball after Olympics when you were a kid, and you'd be like, okay, this is much harder than it looks on TV when the world-class athletes are actually playing at an Olympic level. But this dog could actually make it to some of the Olympic teams.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking, though, watching this. The fact that the dog only just passes to his buddy. He never actually goes for the glory himself to actually whack the ball over the net. No, absolutely not. He's just there to assist, and he's been a very good boy, and he's let his friend there have all the glory when it comes to this particular game. So a little bit heartbroken, but maybe that's just the lock-in blues kicking in there. So that's the most talented dog athlete today. Right, so we don't have any live sport to bring you, but we do have these kids perfectly creating a load of iconic goals and celebrations. This is brilliant. Have a look at this.
I don't know how many million views this has now, but it certainly had 2.5 yesterday when I saw it. This is the type of thing that's going to do like 40 million views over the course of the next few days, because it's going to roll forever, essentially. So many of the goals are recognisable.
Oh, so many. So as you saw there a moment ago, he started with Wayne Rooney's goal. And I think like the best part about all of it is actually the celebrations. But it's not the best part about all of it, but it is a nice cherry on the cake. Cristiano Ronaldo's. I'd like to know how many attempts he took to nail it, but I'm sure it's first attempt. Superb. Again, Ronaldo celebration, absolutely nailing the head. Then he does Maradona, Hand of God, which was fantastic. I'm not sure are these English kids, and obviously well able to look back on a terrible moment from England's history on the football pitch, and then the Ronaldinho chip against Chelsea, or not the chip, the little pivot with the foot, and then a toe poke to the back of the net, and again celebration nails. Yeah. This almost most impressive than the Thierry Henry goal against Manchester United.
And the Life of Riley in the background as well. So hopefully there's no copyright issues about it. And the Lightning Seas, good fellas. Liverpool fans though, so I don't know how they're going to feel about the whole thing. The celebrations is great. The goalkeeper is perfect as well. That's there's two kids in this. It's not just it's not just the goal scorer who's getting all the glory. It's the precise and proper reaction of the goalkeeper in each of these instances, with his slightly theatrical version of it that makes the whole thing.
It's true. The thing that went most viral over the course of the weekend, though, was a lad pouring a can of Guinness. And the Twitter account, apologies, I'm just going to grab the Twitter account here, who actually had it, was Owen Callan. This got over 1 million views. We can see him there with the Guinness half filled. I was surprised at how viral this went over the course of the weekend. I'm not sure. Did you feel that same level of surprise, sure, or what was your thoughts on this video before I give my take?
My thoughts on this video were kind of ruined by reading the comments underneath it going, oh, well, he's going to get violence. This guy's going to die from drinking this can because he hasn't wiped the top of it. I'm like, how do you know he hasn't wiped the top of it? I mean, all you're seeing is this bit. You don't know that he wasn't like, sterilizing the can for weeks beforehand. Is it a special glass? Do you need that specific type of glass for this to work? And
no.
And I just want a pint.
Well, okay, that is definitely
9:30 in the morning. I'd be happy without, one right now, but like a properly pulled pint.
It would be nice, but like, are you not an aficionado of the Guinness can anyway? Like, it has Owen Callan actually just revealed to people that Guinness cans are actually kind of magical anyway. They have the little widget inside, and if you pour it directly upside down, you will get something that resembles a good pint. Now, I will give him this. I've seen many people drink cans of Guinness and pour it in upside down, and you get a nice pint, but nothing has been as impressive as this. I will say that. It is an extremely good-looking pint, and it looks like it's straight out of a tap. But I think people are losing their heads completely about this thing when it's not that special. It's great. It's very, very, very impressive. But it's the can doing all the work.
You're saying you knew this? Is that what I'm to take from your mini rant? This is no big deal because you knew exactly how this was done already, and so what's the big deal?
Well, exactly. It has a little widget inside, and maybe that speaks more about me than anything else. That one of the things I know a bit about is actually Guinness cans, but and maybe everybody else is actually kind of on a moral high ground compared to me down here, actually knowing about one thing and one thing only, which is Guinness cans. But yeah, no, honestly, it's a work of art. It absolutely is. But the Guinness can is there to be poured directly upside down. You do not pour a can of Guinness like you pour an ordinary can of beer or lager. Everybody knows that, or so I thought.
They don't. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, I just assumed the widget is like a little thing. It's to keep it so that it prevents it from settling in the can. But then you open it and you just pour it normally. No? You pour it upside down fully? Everybody knew that? Why did they not put ads out on TV showing you how to do this?
Since I've been a mere pup, I knew that was how you poured a Guinness can. Directly upside down. Don't even touch the side of the glass. Don't even touch it like you're pouring a pint of Guinness. Straight upside down, straight into the can. The messier, the better. But I will say, I have tried many a time to do it, and it always looks good, because how can it not look good? But Owen Callan's is definitely better than anything I've ever produced.
We had a little insight into what Sport Without Fans is like with WrestleMania on over the weekend, though, and I know this is a big weekend in your life every year.
I wish, I every year comes around, it's like, oh, I should have got into this for the last couple of weeks and actually got on the WrestleMania bandwagon. That feeling more acute this year, given it's one of the few sports we have available between this and the Belarusian Premier League. But the big news from WrestleMania over the course of the weekend is that Rob Gronkowski is a WWE champion. So he pinned, according to a New York Post article I'm reading, he pinned his friend Moho Rawley on Sunday to become the 24/7 champion on the second night of two-day WrestleMania 36. This took place in Orlando, close set, as you've mentioned. So Gronkowski, who was the host of the event, nearly won the belt, which can be defended anytime and anywhere on Saturday night. Instead, Rawley broke up the 30-year-old Fox Sports analyst pin attempt on R-Truth to claim the belt. And then Gronkowski afterwards says, I've won 3 major championships in my life. That's cool and all, but that's in the past. It's all about this belt. So Rob Gronkowski, WWE champion, things you never thought you'd say.
Oh, I don't know. I think there was always a good chance that Rob Gronkowski's entire career has been leading to the moment where eventually he wins WrestleMania. Like he is the main event, and he is the new, what's her name? Becky.
Becky Lynch. Sorry.
Yeah. So Gronk is the new Becky Lynch. That's it. Right. If you want to get in touch with us, 087 180 180. Tonight on Off the Ball, Stephen Kenny joins Joe Malloy. Then there's the Newsround Monday Night Rugby and the football show as well, all live from 7 o'clock. Today, though, we're launching our Mount Rushmore of the 32 counties of Ireland. This is obviously a much bigger story than Stephen Kenny replacing Mick McCarthy. We all know that, that was always going to happen. But who ultimately is going to be on each county's Mount Rushmore by the end of this entire shit show? We're going to know, because we're going to go through county by county. We're starting with the only place that we could do in this place, because if we didn't, there would have been a revolt. Nathan Murphy is standing by to tell us who is going to be on the Mount Rushmore that he sculpts with his bare hands somewhere in a field outside Castlebar. Next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB.
Off the Couch, live every day at lunchtime across the Off the Ball channels. While we're all staying at home, we want to help you get your daily exercise in. We're bringing you sporting experts with tips and workouts suitable to do at home.
Exercise is not defined to strict parameters. Once you get sweaty and out of breath, it works.
You might be stuck in the house, but let's keep moving and get off the couch.
You can use your couch to elevate your feet if you're lying on your back.
Off the Couch, Off the Ball's new lunchtime fitness program. You can get it on all our social channels and offtheball.com every day from 1 p.m.
OTB. OTB AM.
All right, you're very welcome back to OTB AM. We're here with you every morning from 8 until 10 while the lockdown continues. It turns out you're all getting out of bed a little bit later, and so we decided we would do the same thing too, because you actually want something between 8 and 10, and we will put stuff up for you from 7:30 as well for the early risers, so we're going to keep you going, and obviously you can get all our good stuff on podcast as well. But one of the other things that we've been talking about, we've been banging on about this idea for a number of years, was to go through each county and see who would actually be their top 4 sports people, who would be on their Mount Rushmore if we could commission proper architects and, your man McLeod from Grand Designs, and there was no better place to start than Mayo, because obviously they're the county with the biggest egos, and so they've had the greatest sporting lineage of all time. And speaking of egos, Nathan Murphy, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Why me first? Why me?
Well, you insisted, is the truth. So come here. This is actually not that hard for most counties. There are some counties where it's going to be very difficult. Dublin's going to be difficult. Cork is going to be difficult. Galway might be difficult. With Mayo, is it actually that difficult? Have there been 4 standout candidates? Is it 1 standout candidate and 3 others? Is it 2 standout candidates? What you tell us where we are with this.
Well, I have slept somehow during this global pandemic quite soundly, but last night, having to try and whittle this down to 4 people, I barely slept at all. There are 2 standout candidates that automatically were straight on the list, and then there's about 10 people fighting for the last 2 spots. All-Ireland winners, well, that's where it gets a little bit difficult. How many All-Ireland medals do you need to get on this? How far back in history are we going? Because obviously this is, in some ways, a personal selection that I'm trying to do on behalf of the people of Mayo, though judging by my Twitter feed, it isn't going to be an enjoyable few hours after this. So, yeah, do you have to have been born and grown up in Mayo? Is second generation Mayo just fine?
Yes. Well, let's just for clarity here. The last Mount Rushmore item I remember doing it off the ball was Adrian Barry doing his Westmeath Mount Rushmore, and I'm sure he's going to do a final definition of this soon. But he picked Paddy O'Shea on his Westmeath Mount Rushmore. So that goes to tell you can not only be not born in the county or not have relatives in the county, you can just be an honorary man or woman of that county. So whatever you please, Nathan, it is up to you. In terms of the timeline, we naturally assume that you're going to be picking people based on recency bias. It is your Mount Rushmore as much as anything else. Your name is going to be inscribed at the bottom right corner after this is done.
Okay. Do you want me to get into it?
Let's go for your first 2 there, the definites.
All right, number 1, straight up, top of the list, no questions asked, Cora Staunton. 4 All-Ireland titles by the age of 22. She brought Mayo to 7 All-Ireland finals. She won 6 Club All-Ireland titles, 11 All-Stars, also won a Women's FAI Cup back in 2006 with Mayo, and is quite simply the greatest ladies footballer of all time and Mayo's greatest footballer. Cora Staunton, nobody can dispute her place on Mayo's Mount Rushmore.
Okay, so we're getting into the medals matter here.
Well, she has it all. She has the talent, she has the story, and she has all the medals. All the medals. And she covers everybody else in terms of medals, so it's fine. I think that by the end of this, there's going to be a lot of All-Ireland medals. Cora may have them all, but it's still a lot of All-Ireland medals. Second on the list, there are 2 real icons in Mayo, Crow Patrick and Lee McHale's legs. Lee McHale's legs alone would deserve to get him onto this. But add in the fact he's one of Mayo's greatest ever footballers, and what he did with the basketball team in Ballina in the 90s, I think, earns him his place. Among many similar style of talented footballers of that 90s Mayo side, there's many of them who've lost 2-3 All-Ireland titles. So I think the fact he's won 2 national cups and a Super League with Ballina in that sort of glorious era of basketball in this country, I think Liam McHale, for that reason, deserves his spot. As well as that, his undeniable talent. And if he hadn't been sent off wrongly by Pat McEnany, if he hadn't been completely screwed over by the people of Meath, he would be an All-Ireland, probably a multiple All-Ireland winner.
I think you should try and put Pat McEnany on this, because in the same way that Paddy O'Shea is totally entitled to be on the Westmeath one, if you guys, it would actually be the perfect symbol for what makes Mayo such a great story. The heartbreak, the endless fear and loathing that they feel about the smell of want. If you were to put the smell of want on this mountain, the only way you could actually do it was to put Pat McEnany up, so that the people of Mayo could come and throw rotten tomatoes. You could actually charge in. It would be free, except 2 days a year, where you would have like an endless supply of rotten fruit that they could just throw at the mountain, and all the money would go to charity, obviously, But Pat McEnany would get on Mayo's Mount Rushmore, and it would be an accurate representation of what it is to be a Mayo GAA fan.
No. Mayo Mick is obviously the head you're thinking of here, Jared. Not that you need the Mayo Mick head up there.
Either one.
Remind everybody
Hold
who he
on
is.
1 second, lads. My laptop's about to die in typical Mayo fashion. We mightn't even get to the end.
While we're allowing Nathan to go charge up his laptop, I'm interested that this is the two. I suspect it's I know who's going to be the third in here as Nathan goes to get his charger. So we've got Cora, we've got Liam McHale so far. I'm predicting a lot of Ciara McDonald love here, Nathan. Is that who your number 3 is going to be?
It is not.
Oh.
I'm not saying he may not be on the list, but my number 3, after much consideration and blinded by the fact that we give him so much abuse on a regular basis, sort of ignores the ridiculously good career he has had. He is Mayo's greatest celebrity fan now, which also helps him earn his place on Mayo's Mount Rushmore. My third choice is Kevin Kilbane. 110 caps. Kilbane is one of the most ridiculous records in modern day football. 10 consecutive years of international football without missing a competitive game. 66 straight games. It's insane. We love to take the piss out of him, but what he did, 4th highest all-time caps holder, is ridiculous. And Mayo, I think we need a bit of variety in this list. And Kilbane is without question Mayo's greatest ever soccer player. And, he wears the county on his sleeve, in his heart, wherever he goes in the world. Over in Canada, he's jogging around at the moment, fully kitted out in his Mayo tracksuit. And I just think the career he had, 10 years in the Premier League, 110 caps, and that 66. It's one of the most underestimated records, I think, in Irish football. To go 10 years without missing a competitive game is just ridiculous.
You're just doing this so you're A, guaranteed a spot at the wedding, and B, to try and help him get some kind of deal from the Mayo Tourism Board.
Busted. Is there going to be any tourism ever again?
I mean, who knows? If there is, Kev's going to be there. Look, I can't disagree with it, right? But what are your parameters for, he's a Mayo man, but he's also, if we were doing one for Preston, he'd be on that. So can you be on multiple? Can you be from different places? I'm certainly of the view that you can't. I can see how people are going to say no, but I can actually, I concur. But we should tease this out.
Well, firstly, part of the issue I had is if we're going for second generation, which we are, does Darren Fletcher come into the mix? Has a holiday home down in Achill, is second generation. And then are you into the likes of Johnny Kilbane, who I think we discovered was some way distantly related to Kevin, former world boxing champion. Gene Tunney, who's second generation Mayo, former world heavyweight champion almost 100 years ago. But I just think Kilbane's connection with Mayo is stronger than most of those. And I think that means that he can be on this list ahead of those names.
Judge, if anybody doesn't know, Johnny Kilbane was the longest tenured world champion boxer, I think, up until maybe Klitschko beat his amount of time that he was a world champion. He was actually born in Mayo and moved to Cleveland in the late 1890s, early 1900s. So like he is a proper Mayo man. There's a statue of him, I think, on Achill. Good documentary made about him on TG Carr a couple of years ago. So like, you know, if this was an all-time list and we were actually being historically accurate about it, then not having Johnny Kilban on that list would be a bit ridiculous. But since it's your list, we might let you away with it.
How many All-Ireland finals did Johnny Kilban bring me to?
Exactly.
You're a man, Nathan, who is obviously clearly easily swayed, right? You've been swayed by a corporate box ticket from Kevin Kilban. Ray Moylett has had a campaign waged on his behalf on Twitter over the last 24 hours. You need to tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so Paddy Barnes, I think, was the first to respond, saying, well, obviously, if you're going for Mayo Mount Rushmore, Ray Moylett has got to be there. European world boxing champion at amateur level. So Mayo haven't had too many world champions down through the years. So Ray Moylett, he's had pretty much the entire Irish boxing fraternity get on board. So I think if it was a public vote, Ray Moylett would most definitely be on this. Unfortunately, Ray, you do not make Mayo's Mount Rushmore yet. There is still plenty of time in his career. Who knows, we may come back to this. We may have to knock one of these guys off and chisel in a new face of that of Ray Moylett. The fourth one was the most difficult because, so you have the likes of Ray Moylett, maybe somebody like Sinead Diver, who over the next 12 months or 18 months could go on and be thoroughly deserving of this. Historically, again, like Martin Sheridan is probably thereabouts, 5 Olympic gold medals, 9 Olympic medals in total, but we're talking well over 100 years ago. So,
sorry, Kevin Kilban played a bunch of games in a row. This guy won 5 gold medals in the Olympics. Doesn't even get a mention.
It's over 100 years ago. It's over 100 years ago.
Okay, fair enough.
And then it's trying to decide, you know, do you put a second footballer on the list? So, should there be a male All-Ireland medal-winning footballer? You've got Dermot Flanagan, Tommy Langan were the 2 members of the 51 team that ended up on the team of the millennium. Willie Joe Padden was a name that came up again and again and again. I think if you're going for a player of that generation who didn't win an All-Ireland, I have Lee McHale already in, so Willie Joe unfortunately misses out.
David Brady won an All-Ireland.
He did. That's factually correct. So too, though, did Kieran MacDonald.
True.
And then you're into that sort of more modern era that Kieran MacDonald is included, and also Lee Keegan, Andy Moran, Mayo's only 2 footballers of the year. Lee Keegan, you could argue, Mayo's greatest ever footballer. And this is where I was sweating all night. I just can't make the decision between Lee Keegan, Kieran MacDonald, or Martin Sheridan. This is the stress I have. I know nothing about Martin Sheridan aside from what I've read. It's well over 100 years ago. Was winning an All-Ireland medal easier in 1904 and 1906? I don't know.
Harder.
I don't know. Or maybe it was more difficult. He grew up in Bahola. He had to go and emigrate to America, where he went on to become one of the great American Olympians of his generation. Kieran MacDonald sort of sums up everything that Mayo is about. That it's not necessarily about the medals. It's about the story and the mystique and the journey. And he has all of that in spades. And it's hard to imagine a Mayo Mount Rushmore without Kieran MacDonald's cornrows. It would be a difficult thing to sculpt, it's got to be said. It's going to probably add several years to the construction of this Mayo Mount Rushmore.
Let me tell you what the public say, right? Because this is obviously a public vote here. And Blake Forkin says the match is on. Okay, well, Blake Forkin says the Mac gets his own mountain built for him. Ronan Mullen, our own Ronan Mullen, says let's put Kieran MacDonald on the mountain 4 times. # OTB Mount Rushmore. Paddy Barnes obviously saying you got to get Ray Moylett on. Ray Moylett says, look, I could get a job labouring for the builders creating the Mayo Mount Rushmore, but that's the closest I might get to it. Keith Darcy obviously says McHale was a class act in 2 codes, still has that tan. Did a drop-in session with our local basketball club last year, still a class act, still in shape. Look, I think he was your first one up, and certainly I can do that one. I can get behind that. Ned Freeman, our own Ned Freeman, says Sean Flanagan, Kieran MacDonald, Cora Staunton and Andy Moran. She's gone for him. Around the square, only one man, Kieran MacDonald. Kieran Mack says Kieran Cunningham. Kilban, Cora and Martin Sheridan. Is it Martin Sheridan?
Martin Sheridan, yeah.
Yeah. No, Cillian O'Connor, top scorer in GA history, asks Liam Purcell. Kieran McDonald with 4 different hairstyles, which is the same idea from Michael Devlin. Kevin Byrne says, once Martin Sheridan and Ray Moyle are on there, I'm happy, and I'm almost a card-carrying Mayo man myself. If Killer makes it, then Gene Tunney is a lock for number 1, top of the mountain. Gene Tunney, I don't know, was Gene Tunney, I don't know how on board the train of the Mayo heritage Gene Tunney was, so we might have opened up a can of worms here with that one.
Gene Tunney's parents were both from Kilchamaugh. Gene Tunney's parents were both from Kilchamaugh, so I think he acknowledged his Mayo heritage. I'm not quite sure, if he was Kevin Kilbane levels of acknowledging it.
Yeah, somebody here is saying, so I've just lost that comment there now. Martin Sheridan coincidentally taken by the 1918 epidemic. Says Port Joyce on Twitter. I didn't know that. Cor Staunton, Kieran Mack, the Flying Doctor. Honourable mentions David Brady, Stephen Rochford, and James Horan. So Rochford obviously unbelievably successful at club level.
Yeah, and if you're getting into what managers have done, maybe John O'Mahony deserves to be on that list. Obviously, dual All-Ireland winner. What he did with Leitrim, obviously brought Mayo to an All-Ireland final. So somebody who could well be in the running. But I've made my decision. And it's got to be.
Go on.
Kieran MacDonald. He just sums up what Mayo is all about. It's about the memories. It's about what could have been. And with Kieran MacDonald, there's just a general joy that he brought to people. And the fact that he's probably the most talented footballer this country has ever seen.
The gauntlet has been laid very much. I think, to be honest with you, I think you're actually bang on the money. It's not often I say this, but I think you're bang on the money with your Mount Rushmore. I think they are the 4 I would have gone for. And I think, what people would be like, there's great people in the history of Mayo, but this is Nathan Murphy's Mount Rushmore. He can't turn back the clock and actually tell you how tough was it to win the discus in 1904. How tough was it to do back-to-back All-Irelands in the 1950s? Was it tougher than going so close to Dublin in the last 10 years? To be fair, it probably was tougher. But anyway, we can't say that for sure. We don't have the luxury of going back in time. So genuinely, I think that you've actually hit the nail on the head with that 4, and I fully support the current Mayo Mount Rushmore.
That worries me.
Essentially, these Mount Rushmores are going to end up being the colour TV generation / the YouTube generation Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah, you would have to presume so because, well, there's a certain recency bias, but there's also what people have seen. So, in a way, it makes no sense not to pick the actual Mayo All-Ireland winners. And I say the likes of Dermot Flanagan, Tommy Langan, who were in a team at the Millennium, clearly the people who voted for that, the journalists who could remember back that far, felt they were of a talent that deserved to be there. But all you hear is stories. I have obviously no memory of ever seeing them play. But these are the 4 for me that I won't say of the modern, because we can go back a little bit further than that. But I think this is a fairly solid 4, and a Martin Sheridan probably can count himself quite unlucky.
Where does the Mount Rushmore in Mayo go? Is it on the side of Croagh Patrick?
On the side of Croagh Patrick, looking out over Clew Bay. You can go, you can admire it, and you can head into Westport then for a few pints in Matt Malloy's and a good old session.
A medium. For a little medium. 087 918 180 is the number to dox if you disagree with this. You can also get Nathan at Nathan Murph on Twitter. But that is it from us this morning. Are you ready for the backlash? We've got about a minute left here. Are you ready for the backlash that this is going to?
Well, I'm just wondering where it's going to come from. Who is the biggest fan club of the people? Well, I think we've already seen Ray Moylett as the biggest fan club of the people who've been left out. Like should I put Andy Moran in ahead of Kieran MacDonald? Andy Moran's a footballer of the year.
Yeah, you probably should have. Yeah.
Lee Keegan, footballer of the year, 4 All-Stars.
I would say you're certainly at most dreadful people. I would say you're certainly at most dreadful people who are still alive anyway, Nathan. That's probably the place to start.
I'm not worried about it. I can stand over this. Cor Staunton, Lee McHale, Kevin Kilbane, and Kieran MacDonald. Worthy.
Right. Lee Keegan is our next guest on the OTB Kids Takeover. If anybody wants to ask a question like how much of an asshole is Nathan Murphy for not putting Lee Keegan on his Mount Rushmore, then you've got a couple of minutes to get that in. 087 918 180 is the number to use. Send that video for us. And if you missed anything from OTB AM this morning, then listen back to the podcast. My favourite one was Gavin Buggy saying, Stephen Cluxton Jack McCaffrey, Dermot Connolly, and Dean Rock on the Mayo Rushmore over at Clue Bay. You could kick footballs at it, and they would just drift wide of the post at the last second, as it looked like they were about to smack them on the forehead. Oh, just at the last second, the wide disease kicked in, and it didn't work. But look, it's the journey, not the arrival, right?
Exactly, and Mayo's journey is never ending.
Thanks very much for being part of the show, to everybody involved in putting the show together today. We hope you've enjoyed the new start time from 8. We're running all the way until 10 o'clock. We will put up some best of material as well. It's good stuff from 7:30 to 8 every morning. So if you are an early riser and you expect us to be there at 7:30, don't worry, we're not going anywhere for you. Loads of good stuff coming on the evening show this evening. Stephen Kenny's going to be speaking with Joe Malloy live from 7 o'clock this evening. We'll see you tomorrow, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, from our new start time of 8 o'clock live. And as I said, you can still tune in for 7:30. So thanks very much, Owen. Thanks very much, Nathan. See you tomorrow, folks.
Cheers,
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Looking